How was your weekend? Or what do you have planned for
Well,
this weekend?
last
Super
weekend,
Bowl.
we were in Steamboat, Colorado,
I seen
snowboarding.
that.
So,
Is that what you do?
that's what I'm starting to do. I started
Nice.
last January. That was my first time on a mountain in 20 years, and then November went to Switzerland, snowboarded the Swiss Alps, broke my rib. That was really fun.
I'm
So,
not a cold person, so
um, New York kind of made me a cold person,
yeah,
and then you throw like fun activities into it. People think that they're like, it's so cold. Why would you do that? But then you're like on a mountain sweating your ass off.
yeah,
It's like swimming.
yeah.
Like to think that you can sweat while you swim, like it's possible.
I know. What is it with snowboarding? Like, what is? I don't know. I just don't. I don't get it. I guess I
Um,
haven't done it.
it's exhilarating for starters.
And why snowboarding and not skiing? I thought skiing was the.
My response to that is like, I don't want to face my impending death. I want to like
Sideways.
you know?
That's right. Yeah.
So, and I started out snowboarding when I was 18, but at that age, I like reached a point where I was like, okay, I am going to have a dance career. This could really interfere with it. I didn't want to get injured, so I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
And I had like just kind of started learning. So picking it back up 20 years later, I will say Steamboat, I was a little like intimidated. Scared shitless is the correct term because I mean just 12 weeks before I broke my rib snowboarding. But it was so much fun. It's
Yeah.
like I love learning in any regard, whether it's about like holistic health or
Yeah.
personal development or learning a new skill like snowboarding. Because it's like when you start to connect the dots, it's like, oh
Yeah.
that's fun.
All starts to come together.
Yeah.
Do they have like some type of beginner classes?
Oh
like,
hell yeah. A year ago
yeah,
when
they
I
don't
did
just
it, I
put
mean
you on
like
a snowboard, right? And send you
no.
out there.
When I started a year ago, I did a full day of lessons, and like lesson number one was like, these are your boots, these are your bindings. So it was like for babies basically.
Yeah.
But last weekend my boyfriend just like took me under his wing. He was like, we're gonna figure this out.
Yeah.
So
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Where was that at?
Steamboat, Colorado.
Steamboat, Colorado. I love Colorado. I went out to Garden of the Gods one time. That was pretty cool.
Ooh.
Yeah. It was weird because it was hot, but it was during the winter.
It's so weird when you
Yeah.
are in the mountains and it's hot.
Yeah, it's like
It's a
it
mindfuck.
almost looked like a desert.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah.
It was odd because I think we went out there. It had to have been in the winter because I know it was cold. Like even when we went up to the Rocky Mountains, and it was like they wouldn't let us go all the way up because of the snow. Thank God I brought my truck because I didn't know that you'd literally just drive up a mountain. There's no guardrails, nothing, and it's just like a foot of snow. I'm like, oh my God.
That's why snowboarding is so terrifying to me because I'm like, there's a cliff and I'm gonna fly off.
I know. And then when you're driving, so you're going up one way and then they're coming down and it's the smallest lane. And so going up was fine because we're on the right side, but going down on the left side, I'm just like, holy shit.
I get that.
If we start sliding and we fall off this cliff, like we're all fucked.
I totally get that.
Yeah. And then you have like these little, everyone's got like a Subaru out there. So like there's like all these little Subarus, which I was like, damn, man, maybe I should get one of those because those things drive pretty nice. I mean, they were making it up that hill like nothing. So
we're doing in a couple of weeks Utah, which that's where I went last January.
Really? I love you. I passed through Utah.
Yeah.
And it was so crazy. I remember I was on the highway and the highway I was on, I don't know what it was so long ago, but a gas station was like every 150 miles or something like that. Like it was so far. But I remember I stopped by this little gas station and off in the distance, you know, you've got all the mountains. And there's just a house, a single, like one little house tucked up against the mountain. It was so weird to see. Like it was like
somebody lives there.
Yeah, it was like right up against it. And there's just this huge mountain. Like I felt like if they went out their back door, they could just touch the mountain. And then like you see all these houses on like stilts and stuff like that. But yeah, Utah is beautiful. I wish I could live out there. What are you guys going out there for?
To snowboard.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Of course.
I have to say Switzerland was the most beautiful place I've ever seen though. Like I would move there tomorrow.
Switzerland? Really? I wouldn't have thought Switzerland, I guess.
Insanely beautiful.
What makes it beautiful out there?
Well, so we went like fall time. I can't. I feel like we kind of got the best of both worlds because we're in the Swiss Alps.
I think I've seen that on Instagram. like where the fall, like they have a video of Switzerland in the fall, like this cozy little town.
Just
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it looks like The Sound of Music, even though
Mm,
that's Austria, but like it's just like a fairyland. It's
yeah,
beautiful, and the mountains and the foliage, and Switzerland has like such a pride in their country and their cleanliness, like unlike we have here.
yeah.
So even when we were in Zurich, we were in a very small town of like 2,000 people just outside of so Matterhorn is like where you snowboard, that's the Swiss Alps. But you can't actually drive there. It's all electric cars.
Oh,
So
really?
we were in a town called St. Nicholas of 2,000 people, like teeny tiny.
Hmm.
Then we went to Interlaken, which is like out of a movie. And then we went to Zurich. Zurich is to me like New York City and San Francisco had a European baby. It's a massive city. It's
Really?
also the money capital of the world. So it's just dripping in money, and
Hmm.
it's a huge city. Like we looked up dinner reservations and it was like, okay, cool, 7:30. Oh shit, that place is an hour and a half away, but it's still in Zurich. That's how big this city is,
Dang.
but it's spotless.
Really?
Spotless. And
I
as
wonder what they're
someone
doing different over there.
I mean, like there was literally a guy in front of his storefront, like cleaning, not just cleaning the window, like
Uh-huh.
cleaning the outside of his building.
So it's more like a culture thing over there,
Oh
like
yeah. Like
embedded.
no
Yeah,
trash, like
yeah. Because San
very
Francisco,
different.
that's like they're like on the opposite end of the spectrum.
Oh
Where,
yeah, I mean, and I lived in New York City for 12
yeah,
years, so it's like
yeah,
I know what a big city's like, and Zurich ain't it. All
yeah,
of Switzerland, it's like spotless. But if we could totally get into like the food system over there and how it's completely different. And
yeah. Why is that? Why do you think the United States have such an issue of that, and other countries not? Well, other countries I think still do, but from what I've heard, they're a little better.
a lot better.
Uh huh.
They have completely different standards than
Hmm.
we do. There's a lot of things that they even ban. I
Hmm.
mean, we could talk about like on the food spectrum, we could talk in terms of, household and beauty products, what they allow versus what they don't allow versus what, the things that we grew up with, even
Hmm.
Johnson and Johnson. Like
Yeah.
you look here versus there, it's completely different products in terms of what they allow to be in the
Same company, but
yes,
different
same
products.
company, different products.
Yeah.
Um, but for us, it's all driven by money.
Oh, yeah. But you would think the world is driven by money, isn't it?
It is, but I mean, our country's money hungry.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
not
don't want to
lie.
come off and sound like,
No, it's the truth though.
radical, but
No,
it's
it is the
I mean,
truth.
it's the whole system.
Mhm.
And one of my favorite, like, it's not necessarily a quote, but one of my favorite like sentiments that they would kind of um not drill into us, but instill in us when I was in nutrition school to be a health coach was this idea of if you eat food made by people in white coats, you have to
Mhm.
go see people in white coats to fix you.
Yeah.
So it's their little food chain for us. If they
Mhm.
keep us in the system,
Yeah.
and then they have a magic pill for everything. A
They're
sick
basic.
patient is a profitable patient.
Yeah. So basically, the ones that are allowing these products in food are setting up patients for doctors.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And it's all connected. You look at big agriculture, you look at big pharma, like it's all connected.
Yeah. That's so
And
sad.
for anyone who thinks that it's not, like,
Mhm.
I don't know if it's ignorance, if it's naivety, if they just don't want to believe that that's true, but it is all connected. So it's advocating for yourself. And
Yeah.
that's part of my job as a health coach is I don't like to tell people what to do. I like to educate them and empower them and teach them to
Mhm.
advocate for themselves.
Yeah.
And especially the space that I'm in now, like, the particular sector of women that I'm working with,
Mhm.
because it's shifted over the years, empowering them with the knowledge to be able to go to their doctor and say like, hey, this is what I need. Because oftentimes us as women, I don't know if men face this as much,
Mhm.
we're told, everything's fine, you're normal. And it's like, well, I have a laundry list of symptoms. So how is that normal?
I think the problem though, and I've had this issue when I do talk to my doctor. Well, I don't even have a specific doctor because I've switched them so many times because I know I'm not going to find a perfect doctor,
Mm-hmm.
but I find so many that I just feel like, and I understand being a doctor is a job as well. So it becomes a job.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see that on those doctors to where it's just like, hey, how you doing? What are you here for? Blah, 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 boom, 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 take this, this, and this. And
Mm-hmm.
I'll be like, hey, but I was looking on Google or I heard on a podcast this, and they're like rolling of the
Oh
eyes.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And it's just like, and I always try to tell them, like, I'm not trying to act like I'm smarter than you. I'm not, okay? But I do a little bit of work like on the side of trying to broaden my perspective
Yeah.
on health and like what are some alternative ways or what or ways to go about what I'm dealing with right now, or hey, maybe this will work. For instance, I deal with perioral dermatitis on my face.
Okay.
So I get red marks and stuff. And I told the doctor, I said, I think I need an antibiotic. Like that's where I keep seeing like everywhere. And there's other things too, like food, what you're eating, a lot of like rice and stuff like that can kind of get the skin inflamed and
Mhm.
stuff. I've seen that stuff too. And I agree I need to get better on that. But at the time, everywhere I was reading was like antibiotic. And I mean, he looked at me and I felt like like I was just another guy coming in thinking that he knows more. So he was
Mhm.
just like, no, you don't. He's like, here's this steroid cream, put it on your face. You'll be all right.
Yeah.
All right. Worked for like a couple of days and then spread everywhere, like
Mm.
literally aggravated my whole face.
Yeah.
And so then I'm like, okay, years later, I just stopped using it and just dealt with it. And years later, I go to an actual dermatologist and he's like, oh no, you don't put steroids on your face, like any type of steroid cream. I'm like, well,
Especially long term, it's so delicate.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and it said only for 14 days.
Mhm.
So that's what I did, but it jacked my face up. And then he goes, no, you don't do that. And I was like, I know, I read that on Google. Like, I literally, like, why am
Mhm.
I getting
Yeah,
looked at
well,
like
now you're
this?
second guessing yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because he's making me feel like, and he's got the degree, but I mean, it's not like I looked at one source. I seen multiple articles saying, hey, don't use a steroid.
Yeah.
And he prescribed it. And then, and I asked the doctor, I'm like, aren't you guys all on the same page? He's like, well, if you came in with something like blood pressure wise, I wouldn't know what to tell you. He's like, my field is in skin. Okay, I get that.
Mhm.
But I mean, you guys aren't like well rounded and like that's all you focus on. Like, you guys don't keep up or like come together as a whole,
Mm-mm.
a collective, and be like, hey, this is what we need to like.
No.
We don't use
It's
these.
the human body is compartmentalized. That's what I mean.
Uh,
You go to a specialist. You have shoulder doctors, you have elbow doctors, you have heart doctors, you have
But why doesn't the dermatologist get with the normal everyday doctors that are just doing your checkups and physicals and say, hey, just so you know, please don't send them steroid or don't prescribe them steroid cream. If you're going to prescribe them anything, just like don't send them to us.
yeah.
Or here is a list of things that you should, and they're not doing that.
Well, I wish I had like a concrete answer for that, but I mean, I can only view it through the lens of like allopathic medicine. Western
Hmm.
medicine is very compartmentalized. I don't always feel like there's a team approach for a patient. Like you can find facilities that like pride themselves in that. That just a regular clinic or a regular hospital, whatever the case may be, where it's like a a patient is given a team of doctors, and they are all communicating. But in general, you go to a doctor and they're going to give you like a
Hmm.
quick fix solution, a band-aid, a pill, whatever the
A
case
pill,
may be. But that's where holistic health is different. And if you look at the world of functional medicine,
yeah,
holistic, it's whole person, whole life.
yeah.
So they're not just going to look at the rash on your face and say, how do we make this go away? The question is going to be what's causing this, and they're going to look for the root of
Yeah,
it.
and that's the thing that I've been seeing a lot is that it's not the specific illness, it's what's contributing to that. Like, how did you
Hmm.
get that
Yeah.
illness? What are you doing in your
Hmm.
lifestyle that is making you like this?
Yeah.
And I feel like in Western medicine, like you said, we're just going to attack that.
Hmm.
We're not going to change it. We're not going to tell you, hey, you should lose weight. Hey, you should exercise. Hey, you should eat better. We're just going to give you something that will basically, I feel like, just mask the symptoms,
Oh, 100%.
you
It's
know,
how do we exactly cover it up?
make you feel
But
better
even that,
temporarily.
like with the diet and exercise piece, there's so many people that are given that advice where
Hmm.
the doctor will straight up say, lose weight, start exercising. I hate to say it, but in our society, you know how many people have no clue how to do that? Telling
Hmm.
someone to lose weight start exercising. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's, we got some barriers there. Everyone knows kind of how to move their
Yeah, do
body.
some push-ups,
Yeah.
body weight squats or
There are a
something.
lot
Yeah.
of barriers there, but especially with the lose weight thing, if people like knew how to do that without having the how do I say this? Uh how much information is out there? How much contradictory information is out there?
Mm-hmm.
And people just like knew what to do, we wouldn't have the obesity problem that we have.
Mm-hmm.
But people kind of are clueless. Someone like me, I can go, well, it's kind of self-explanatory. You know to eat a vegetable, you know
Mm-hmm.
to cook versus like eat out, but it's not that simple. It's
Yeah.
so much more complicated.
What's crazy to me is though the access to information couldn't be more in this time period.
I think
YouTube,
it's
the
information
internet.
overload, but
Yeah.
also especially someone who's like desperate to lose weight, they're taking in so much information and so much of it is contradictory that they're just collecting more and more information and never taking action because they're looking at all going, well, this says do this says do that.
What do I do?
What do I do?
Yeah, where do I start?
Or they're doing something like, I'm not a huge fan of keto or low carb for women.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of reasons for that, but people look at results. And so they go, okay, this is going to happen fast. And they're looking for the easy button. And so they go that route. But 10 out of 10 times what they're doing isn't sustainable. You can't do it long term. So then you're going to end up right back where you were. What did you actually get out of it?
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many nuances in that.
What with keto and females, why is that not a good thing?
So we could get into the whole hormone thing.
Okay.
Our endocrine system, our hormone system is so delicate.
Mm-hmm.
We have to have carbohydrates in order for that to function optimally.
Okay.
Any human, it's the body's preferred source of energy. It's what your body's going to go to first. You're active, you do a sport, you work out. It's knowing that, okay, if I eat carbohydrates, number one, my body's going to use that right away for my workout. But number two, it's also going to be stored in my muscle for energy later. You are active, so it will be used later, right? Where people start demonizing it is saying that carbs make you fat. They don't. Any human, it doesn't matter who you are, if you eat an excess of carbohydrates or an excess of energy in general, right? Energy meaning calories in general, it's going to get stored. And as long as you're not utilizing it, it's going to get stored as fat, right?
Right.
But for women, like we have to have it not just for muscle function, but men too, for brain function, but especially for women, thyroid function.
Mm-hmm.
So eating low carb, especially in the long run, it's going to down regulate the way that our hormones interact with one another, the way that they're produced in general. So a lot of women who do these, I'm going to call it extreme dieting because it is anything that's cutting something out. They start to like experience the ramifications of it in the form of symptoms. But it's funny how they never look at the thing itself and go, maybe that's not for me. They just hold on to the belief that something's wrong with them. Their body's broken. Like, why does nothing work for me?
Yeah.
But it's like, hey, maybe that's a bad idea.
Well, and then we're all different. So some people who are able to, they stand by this is the diet that works for them, or whatever their way of their healthy lifestyle, being keto, being able to work out on that diet. It may not work for everybody, in a sense. But yeah, and the hormone thing, I feel like is so overlooked. I just started doing hormone therapy. I started back in July at NHR. Never thought about it. I've always known about it. I've always known about TRT, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Never knew like really what your levels were and stuff like that. Paid attention to your estrogen levels and your testosterone levels, and I couldn't even name off all the other stuff they talked to me about, but vitamin deficiencies and stuff like that. But I didn't understand it. I didn't think it was like an important thing to monitor.
Yeah, we're not taught.
Yeah, we're not taught that.
Yeah.
And we're just taught and barely, but eat good, exercise. Well, I did that for a long time. Granted, I let myself go in my 20s, drinking a lot, partying, doing stupid shit, not eating well. So I always thought for years, dabbling in working out, in and out, in and out for years, I always wondered, why is my body not seeing results?
Mhm.
And I kept blaming myself. You're not tough enough. You're not doing enough. You're not dieting enough. And I was like, and it would get me discouraged.
Mhm.
And so after 6 months or a year of you being told like, hey man, don't you work out? Like, you don't look like it. That
Yeah.
typical, you're supposed to look like
Yeah.
this huge buff, guy. And it really just messed with my mind,
Yeah.
which is what you're saying, is that like to have all of it, mind, body, spirit
Yep.
type thing, you have to be able to manage all of those, take care of all of
Mhm.
those. Cause when one's lacking, it's going to
Yeah.
affect the other ones. And as soon as I did that, I mean, it was like night and day. Once they see my levels and they're like, oh my God, like your testosterone levels are just horrible. Like
Yeah.
I think I was like in the 200s. It was just so bad. My vitamin deficiency, I was like deficient in vitamin D, which explains a lot,
Yeah.
how I was feeling and
Heck
stuff.
yeah.
And so after making that change, I mean, has been the best thing I think I've ever done. The, I mean, the results I got from it, how I feel,
Yeah.
and it's not a cure to everything. I still deal with stuff in my life, but it has made everything a lot better. And
Mhm.
I think the sad part is though, is that when I talk about it, because I'm very open about it, I'm not one of those guys who hides it. I get demonized for it.
That's
As in like
interesting. Yeah.
you're taking the quick fix, you're cheating, you're, whatever it is that they're deal. It's I think hormone therapy right now is just being looked at so negatively, and I don't know why. And I can understand by pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah.
I can understand them being pissed. But by average everyday people, they have it in their mind as if you're taking a shortcut. It's like, what are you talking about? So if I take vitamins, is that a shortcut? If I have a well-balanced diet, is that a shortcut? Like, no,
Mhm.
I'm utilizing all the tools I can
Yeah.
that I can afford and trying to optimize the machine that is getting me through
Yeah.
life. What's
I
wrong with
don't
that?
I I kind of think that people look at that in the same way that they would it as like something like steroids of like you're
Yeah.
cheating, but it's like when we're looking at something like your hormones and your vitamin
Hmm.
levels, which vitamins and minerals and hormones, they all kind of interact together.
For sure.
They affect one another. We're talking about your quality of life. It's like you could talk about aesthetics all day long, but I'm sitting here listening to you tell me how
Hmm.
much it affected your mental and emotional state.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Like when those things are down regulated, it affects the
Hmm.
entire system. And
Yeah.
that's where we can take that, conversation right back to them compartmentalizing. And it's like, oh, you have anxiety. Oh, you have depression. Oh, you're having a hard time in life. They just want to give you a pill to try to like balance out your brain chemicals. And it's like, well,
Hmm.
if we look a little deeper, we can see that there's an imbalance somewhere else.
The sad part is, if I would have went to a doctor for that, my
Hmm.
primary care physician, they would have looked at those numbers and said, "You're fine.
Yeah. Well, and that's
Take a vitamin D pill.
yeah, exactly,
You're fine though."
exactly. Yeah.
And it baffles me because if you look at the list of like, I can only speak from the male side, but low testosterone,
Mhm.
depression, low sex drive, irritableness. I mean, there's like 100 different things on there, and you may not like. I didn't have any issues with sex drive. I was fine with that. So,
Yeah,
and
because it's
that's
like not they don't all
well, that's
apply,
the
but
big
yeah.
thing. Everyone's like, "Well, my sex drive is fine." Well, okay, but what about the 100 of other things
Yeah.
that you're dealing with? And I mean, like I was telling you, night and day. I mean, the irritableness I would have, the thoughts, like it was just all confusing,
Yeah.
And now I still, like I said, I still deal with stuff, but I feel like
You feel more
there's,
resilient to deal
yeah,
with
like
it.
I
It's like,
have a
"Oh, I
little
can"
bit of a
yeah.
boost
Yeah.
to go, okay, I'm dealing with this right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Like, let's get through this. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? More of a
Well,
positive in me.
so and this goes for men and women.
Hmm.
this impact that stress has on hormones.
Mm-hmm.
And we could sit here and talk about stress for like the next hour and like the different
Yeah.
nuances of stress, and is it external, is it
Big
internal?
factor in
Um,
society.
but that right there, like when your hormones are down regulated, especially if it's due to stress,
Mm-hmm.
you lose your resiliency. It's like it's stress is inescapable.
Mm-hmm.
We can't avoid it, especially in this day and age. So it's like, what am I doing? I may not be able to shift all of the external pieces of stress,
Mm-hmm.
but what am I doing to support my body to be more resilient
To
to it?
manage that.
Yeah. And then, like where I would say you're a little bit different than maybe the average person in terms of like, okay, I work out, I eat healthy, I'm doing the things, and something's still not right, and then going to do the thing. We are also, because we can look at something like Ozempic or Manjaro or any of the like weight loss shots where it's like
Mhm.
there is an easy button. There are, hormone replacement therapies where, they look and they're like, well, oh, well, this is off.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's a woman having PCOS or
Mm-hmm.
estrogen dominance, there's a whole host of things, right? Where people are given that option to take the easy route and not have to address the lifestyle factors that got them to where they are, be it the
Right.
diet, be it the exercise, be it the stress. And I think it's like, how do you differentiate between a person? You don't know what happens behind closed doors, where it's
Yeah.
like I can look at you and go, oh shit, you really are doing all the things. Like
Mm-hmm.
you should go see how you can get some outside support to get your levels,
Yeah.
normalized, boosted, elevated to an optimal space. But a lot of people are not willing to address what is actually causing the problem. They just want an easy way out.
Yeah, and I don't agree with not trying the natural route for, well, I guess you say natural. I mean, we'll use that term because I mean, I guess that's what you used, but trying to boost or trying to get your hormones managed the natural route, like
Mm-hmm.
they say, like testosterone, you're supposed to be able to boost that naturally. Working out, eating better, there's also a laundry list of things that you can do. I believe you should try those things
Mm-hmm.
first
Yeah.
before you go
Yeah.
and try to go the
And
route that I
especially like
went.
I look at especially TRT, it's like there's so many men that are doing that. Like
Mhm.
they are exercising, they are eating relatively
Yeah.
healthy, like they're doing the things, but I'm not gonna demonize you. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Um
I
yeah.
think I think there's a cost too with everything. You know what I mean? There's a cost with TRT as well, but there's also a cost of trying, not being able to get the results you want, and then living your life unhappy.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, I mean, what we all know that the mind is a powerful thing, and when you're not happy and you're stressed out and
Yep.
whatever it is, it'll affect your health.
Yep.
And I
100%.
don't think people see that. What are some ways that you could try to manage the imbalance of your hormones the natural route? Like, what are some things that we can do, incorporate to kind of
So
start
first
that?
and foremost, people are gonna hate this, but it's nutrition, it's
Yeah.
diet. Um, Whether it's starting by learning what foods are inflammatory versus what foods are anti-inflammatory, um, learning the impact that processed foods have on your health.
Hmm.
Um, Basically, if it doesn't have a barcode, you want to eat more of it. Looking at quality sources of protein, because I mean there are nuances.
Yeah.
If we're just looking at like someone, it's like, oh, eat protein, eat protein, eat protein. It's like great. But if we're talking specifically like optimal health and we're talking hormones, it's
Mm.
like, let's look at the quality. We want to aim for organic chicken if we can. We want to, especially prioritize grass-fed beef, and we can get into the whys of that.
Hmm.
Um, Especially for women, we talk a lot about like mineral rich foods,
Yeah.
getting them to a space where they no longer fear carbohydrates, and they're eating enough of them to support their body and their lifestyle, and doing that, with foods that are actually supportive. It doesn't just mean like go eat a piece of like Wonder Bread. It's like, okay, what foods are really good for my body and not only support the hormones, we have to understand how it is connected to the gut.
Mm.
So oftentimes it's like, okay, there's a hormonal imbalance. There's likely also a gut imbalance. So you can't address one without the
Yeah.
other. Um, so it's okay, not only repairing the gut, how do you even do that? Well, it's going to start with diet, but then what foods specifically heal the gut? There's so many like things within that.
Mhm.
If you want me to elaborate on anything, just like pause and say
Hey,
this.
I'm here to listen. I'm here
Yeah.
to learn today. So
Um, so, focusing on like gut health. So we have to
yeah.
look internally first. Then it's like, okay, the impact of stress. And it's kind of like, when you realize how it is all connected.
Hmm.
Because if we're hyper stressed out and hyper vigilant and overextending ourselves and we're people pleasers and we're high achieving and we're, driven and it's I take care of everything, most women are, especially in this day and age, the impact that that has on our nervous system. That is now connected to the gut.
Mm.
So you have the gut brain connection. You cannot be in a chronic state of fight or flight, stressed out, and maintain that without it impacting your gut, without it impacting your hormones and the production of them. Because if your body's constantly pumping out cortisol and adrenaline, every single other hormone is going to go, your body's going, oh, reproduction, we don't have to worry about that right now. We're
Yeah.
chilling. We're over here. We're like basically in survival mode. So it's okay, looking at the stress. And that means actually taking charge of your life and making sure that the areas that you can control, that you're controlling them.
Hmm.
That means setting boundaries. That means not being a people pleaser. And a lot of that, it's like, shit, I've been doing this my whole life. And it's like, yeah, and look at where it's getting you. So
Hmm.
we have to like readdress how we kind of relate to others and how do we relate to ourselves. But then internally, it's like, okay, what other cues of stress are causing the physiological piece? Under eating, an overly processed diet, and for a lot of women, over exercising. And there's
Mm.
a balance between not exercising enough but also over
Yeah.
exercising. The women that I typically work with are not eating enough. They think they are, but that's a part of diet culture telling us, you know, how much we as women are supposed to eat, which is entirely too little.
Oh
And
yeah.
and so they've been either, actively dieting for an extended period of time or doing like the yo-yo, cycle thing. And it creates a lack of safety in the body. So it's a ton of stress in the body. Um, and then you throw overtraining on that, like exercise or stress on the body. That's why we do it, to create stress, but then we're not, getting enough recovery on top of that. So it's just basically creating a shit storm
Hmm.
and like the perfect little ecosystem to down regulate everything.
You said something on your Instagram. I was trying to remember what you have a highlight of reels on there. I think it's called Think and Feel.
Uh-huh.
Great stuff. Like
Thanks.
really great stuff. I can't remember if you said it on that or if you said it on one of your stories. It was that women are trying to be smaller instead of built.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that? What do you think
Yeah.
that's from? Why is it the whole I'm trying to make myself
Mm-hmm.
smaller, so let me only eat a portion of this size
Yeah.
once a day because that's what's going to help me lose weight when is that sustainable? Well, yeah, you
No,
may be
it's
able to
not.
sustain that for a short
Yeah.
amount of time. You go back to eating normally and your body's like, "Oh shit, what do I
Yeah.
do with all
Yeah.
this?" you know?
Yeah. Um, so let's go back to childhood.
Mhm.
I feel like every woman we're gonna give it like a 20-year gap. Um, let's say women who are like 30 years old
Mhm.
to like mid 40s. So we'll say mid 20s to mid 40s, right? Who grew up in that time. Um, Pretty much as soon as we came out of the womb and realized that we had a body, we were taught to hate our body.
Right.
And that was through society. So things like media outlets, magazines. Obviously, back in our childhood, we didn't have social media,
Yeah.
but TV, magazines, movies. This was the message that was presented to us. And then
Mhm.
if you look at like what was trendy back then in terms of like body composition, we're looking at like heroin chic. We got Kate Moss, like thin as a rail. So
Mhm.
that's what we're being shown as the ideal of beauty. We are also a product of our mothers and our grandmothers and our aunts and any other female that, I mean, it's generational,
Yeah.
that we're being raised hearing the way that they speak about their bodies and the way that they speak about food. So this is conditioning. It is programming at its finest. So for a lot of women, they get to 40 years old and they don't even realize the stories that they've been carrying their entire life.
Mm.
I mean, I'll tell you, for me personally, I 30 years old, I had this like aha moment of like, oh shit. When I was 8 years old, my gymnastics coach pulled me in front of the class and said, your thighs are touching. Thighs are not supposed to touch.
Wow.
And realizing that story has been living with me and driving me for like my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
So addressing that and acknowledging that and rewriting it, reframing that story. I mean, we think that it's just the external piece of like, well, if I do this and this, it's going to give me the result I want. All of a sudden I'm going to be happy and confident and have, the life that I want. But we don't look internally. So
Mm-hmm.
that's where a lot of it starts, is our conditioning and our programming. And diet culture as a whole, especially like we take it back to childhood and how we were taught to eat. Well, women are supposed to eat as little as possible. Like we're supposed to want the salad. We're supposed to have, foods that we say no to. I don't know a single woman that doesn't have, unless they've actively done the work, that doesn't carry around consciously or unconsciously a list of like food rules of like, I can have this, but I can't have this. I can have that right now, but I can't have it later. And just the vicious cycles that creates. And like I was talking about, like there are active periods of dieting, or there's the yo-yoing. And you now have a culture of women that are like good Monday through Thursday, eating as little as possible because they think that's what it takes to lose weight. So they're starving themselves.
Yeah.
And it's going to backfire in one to two ways. They're going to try to eat as little as possible all day long, and they get to nighttime and they're just like ravenous. And so the body's going to try to find homeostasis in some regard. They blame themselves and think that they have no willpower. They've been trying to white knuckle it, and it's like, that shit doesn't work.
Yeah.
You're not the problem. Let's look at, what actually is the problem. But if they can make it through the 4 days being on their best behavior, they fly off the rails on the weekend.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they go into that all or nothing mindset of like, well, pardon my language, but they're like, fuck it, YOLO, like, I don't care. I deserve this.
Yeah.
I deserve this now. I've been good. I deserve this. And we go into like, the morality of it all. And it's like, no, let's address just that piece. But, it's even ingrained in like the cheat day culture. I don't believe in that. I don't believe it. And whether you're a man or a woman, I think that it really instills an unhealthy relationship with food in your body. And it's like, why do we have to have a day where we can have certain foods? What if we learn to incorporate our favorite foods at different times? Then we wouldn't feel the need to go off the rails. And and then a Sunday comes and it's like, better get it all in now, because starting tomorrow I can't have
starvation.
Like, yeah. And it's like, okay, this is the last pizza I'm ever going to have. This is the last cookie I'm ever going to have. Like those beliefs, whether it's again, conscious or unconscious, it's there. It's what's driving. But in terms of like body composition alone, I think there are some women, and there is no shame in this. There's no shame. There are some women that just legitimately want to be skinny. They could care less if they have muscle tone. They just want to be skinny. They say things like, I want to be toned, but what they fail to recognize is toned means having muscle definition.
Yeah.
Having muscle definition means that you have muscle. In order to have muscle, you have to put the body in a position to build and maintain muscle. And I don't know if it's also, a belief that's carried around when it comes to strength training of like, I don't want to get bulky.
I've heard that many times.
Right?
Yeah.
I think I want to believe like in this day and age that that's kind of like outdated and people don't actually believe that, and that men don't actually say that to women.
I think it's a lot better now.
It is better. I still like, it still gets thrown around from time to time. But the amount of effort that it takes for a woman to get bulky, I think people think that it's like so easy to put on muscle. Yeah. I think it's harder to put on muscle than it is to lose fat.
The
it
amount
really
of protein intake you need to
just
look like
the caloric surplus alone, but the amount of like training, the volume, the recovery, like that becomes a full-time job. Like it takes any woman who has like gone into a season of like, all right, I'm doing it. Like I'm going to gain muscle. I'm going into a surplus. They go, oh my God, this is so hot, like hard. If I can gain like, let's say you step on an in-body and it's like, oh my God, my muscle went up like 1%. Like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
People think that it's just going to happen overnight, but it takes so much effort. And it's like, A woman who I look at, that's like jacked. I'm like Dana Lynn Bailey. Like I don't know if people know who she is. She's a bodybuilding like kind of icon, but she kind of like crosses over into different territories. She has
Yeah.
her own training program. I mean, she's a brand. Her and her husband, they have like a brand at this point. They've done really well with the space that they've created. Her physique is insane.
Mhm.
Insane. Do I think it's natural?
More than likely not.
More than likely not.
Yeah.
But the amount of effort that this woman has put in, like I think women kind of look at like a female bodybuilder, right? Not physique. Physique is very different, but like a bodybuilder, and that's what they are like, well, I don't want to do that. I don't want to look like that. But it's like,
It's the same thing on the male side.
yeah, they don't
Yeah.
understand the effort that it's, even if you
Yeah.
are, taking something to enhance it, it still takes a lot of effort.
That's the problem on from the male perspective, is that we think every male will look at a guy that works out and thinks, well, why doesn't he look like this bodybuilder guy? Name any of them
Yeah.
on YouTube.
Uh-huh.
You've been working out for years, man. Why aren't you freaking jacked? And do you understand the nutrition you have, like the amount of calories and
Yeah.
protein and what these guys are doing to obtain that? I mean, talk about discipline.
Yeah.
And on the other side of it, and I have no issues with it at all, I think it's demonized too much, steroid use. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not going to knock anybody that does it. If you want to do it, that's fine. I'm not here to tell you what not to do. I wish people would be a lot more open about it so it wasn't
Agreed.
confusing to people. But people need to understand that those body types, even females, the female Instagram workout people,
Yeah.
like a lot of that stuff is steroids. I mean, and I think that women don't understand that, and they kick themselves in the butt so much.
But like, why can't I achieve that? What's wrong with
Yeah,
me?
why don't I have a big butt like this girl? Why don't
Yeah.
I have a six pack like this girl? Well, you don't go behind closed doors with that girl. Not saying she's taking a lazy route. She's not. She's also probably working out 4 to 5 days a week. She's probably very disciplined on her diet. And I mean, there's all sorts of different factors. And one thing that upsets me, like I said, is that market and that field is not being open about how they're obtaining that, and saying, hey, and you can still get a very nice physique without all that stuff, like
Yeah.
you said, watching your diet and working out can still get you a good physique. You may not look like the girl you're speaking
Yeah,
of.
Dana Lynn Bailey.
Yeah, but why do we have to drive to look like that specific like if you're healthy, your body fat percentage is down, you feel good, you look good, why are we trying to
I think everyone has a little bit, especially with social media, grass is always greener. Because name a person, I dare you, name one person who you can say in your life is like ultimately fulfilled, like so happy in themselves and their lives and all the things.
Nobody. Yeah.
I think part of it, it's like, yeah, it's the human complex. Like it is, suffering is human. It is to be human. But I think with social media and like what we're exposed to on a daily basis, like how can we not play the comparison game? So it's like, I'm not happy. That person must have something that I don't have. I need what they have. Because they, it's like, we've heard it a million times, but it's like we're looking at someone's highlight reel. But even like, I mean, we could go back into like, okay, the physique space of like Instagram. Well, a lot of these influencers are selling you something. So they're going to say, buy my program and you can look like me. Do we think that their program is actually what they're doing?
Exactly.
Because they're selling you like a 3-day a week, generic meal plan, or 3-day a week like program, generic meal plan. And it's like, that's not what they're doing. And it's also not taking into consideration what we're going to call like muscle maturity. It's like you have, like, I love in the weightlifting space. It's like, I love weightlifting so much. I love it.
Oh yeah.
Like, newbie gains. It's a very real thing. Like if someone is like new on their like fitness journey and they start lifting weights, you're going to achieve the like holy grail of body composition change. You're going to gain muscle and lose fat at the same time, especially if you start like prioritizing your nutrition, looking at your macronutrients, like what am I eating? How much, like fine tuning all of that, right? Dialing it in. At some point, and I think this is what's missing from a lot of like education, because you have like macro coaches, you have the whole thing, but I don't think they don't give away the secret because they want to like have people always coming back to them for more.
Right.
This is where I'm a little bit different. I tell my clients all the things. Like I teach them how all of this works so that in any season, whether they're in a season of, I want to lose fat versus I want to gain muscle, they know how to do it because there's a science to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is far beyond the hormone thing because sometimes they can coexist, but oftentimes it's like we have to address the hormone thing first. So just strictly, talking like fitness and fat loss space. If we look at, like I said, these people who are selling these programs, and you have like the muscle maturity piece, at some point you have to choose, what do I want? Do I want to lose fat or do I want to build muscle? Because you get out of that newbie phase.
Yeah.
And I think so many women, it's like, okay, I started working out, like I initially saw results, but I don't look like I work out. And it's like, you've never stopped dieting. And they don't even think that they're dieting, whether it's actively or, like unconsciously. You've never stopped dieting. You work out like a maniac and all you're doing is breaking the body down. Like if you want muscle, you have to start eating more. Stop doing HIIT training. Let's actually start lifting weights. And let's like dial in the recovery piece, the stress piece, the sleep piece, all of it. But they just think like if I work out really hard and I, eat as little as possible, I'm going to get the body that I want. And it's like, no.
I think the problem is that from what I've heard from a lot of women is they don't know how to lift weights. It's not really something that was pushed on them. When you're a dude, you have weightlifting in high school, with all your buddies. So you start learning that type of stuff. I don't know about in female sports. Is weightlifting pushed?
So I did weightlifting in high school and it was kind of like, we were kind of laughed at. Like even, the coach, it was
but like in softball or volleyball, is it really pushed?
So I'm a little bit different. I didn't play like a high school sport. I was a dancer.
Oh, okay.
I have a whole background that you probably don't even know about. Like I lived in New York.
No, I have.
I've
seen some of your dancing.
So there you go.
Yeah.
So I mean, I just did weightlifting as like a gym class, but it wasn't taken seriously. It was like, oh, go do this over there, but we weren't taught. Sure as shit. Now I don't know about like
wouldn't be pushed in dancing. I feel like you would want a strong body.
No.
Really?
We have come miles in the dance world of like actually how to like strength train for dancing. But I mean, that's a whole cultural thing of like where unless you were teeny tiny, we don't want to talk about like body image issues.
Oh, I'm sure.
I feel like two sports that have a lot in common, dance and wrestling. So men and women on both sides will get it in terms of like relationship with body, relationship with food, body dysmorphia, how small can I make my body? Men, it's like I have to cut weight, and they go to crazy extremes to get there, right? I mean, dance, your body is your brand and thinness is celebrated. And anything other than that is kind of looked down upon. There's a lot of shame in it. So growing up in that field, it's like the amount of pressure on girls. And I think it's gotten a little bit better that, pushing for strong dancers. But the way I grew up, it was like thin.
When did you start dancing?
I was 4.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What type of dancing?
I mean, growing up, it was tap, jazz, ballet. I went to college for dance. So the like foundation, ballet, modern, musical theater. The program I did, they wanted to create like well-rounded dancers. So we did world dance. So I did Irish step, flamenco, East Indian, African. We learned a lot of really cool things. And then it wasn't actually like the love of my life is contemporary. It wasn't until I moved to New York City. And actually, when I moved there, I would just kind of follow along with my roommates and go to musical theater class, go to musical theater auditions until one day I was like, I hate this. What am I doing? I actually hate this. And I found contemporary.
What is contemporary?
How do I explain contemporary? So you take ballet, right? Very classical. And it's like you learn the rules. There's a lot of technique there. You could take something like jazz dance where it's a little more flash, a little bit more flair. Then you take lyrical, which is in the middle. It's taking ballet, the technique of ballet, and more of like the funness of jazz. And so you create lyrical, and it's softer and very pretty, but still very technical. Contemporary is like the black sheep of both of those, where it's
Yeah.
like learn the rules so you can break them. Deeply rooted in musicality, a lot of storytelling. I mean, there are probably 10 different styles of contemporary alone, but for me it's like I'm very driven by music. I love music very much. So with that, like as a choreographer, I always said like I love making a visual spectacle of the human
Hmm.
experience, and with contemporary dance you can do that.
Do you still dance to this day?
So I actually teach dance 1 day a week
Oh, nice.
at an adult dance studio. Actually,
That's
here in
awesome.
town, it's called Dance Fit Flow.
Really?
And it's kind of a full circle moment. One of my dear friends who I danced with in college,
Hmm.
and he and I also danced together in New York City. Uh, he came back to Kansas City, I want to say like 3 or 4 years before I did. He started working at Dance Fit Flow. He's now the general manager. And when I moved back from New York, I mean, like, there was a hard separation where all I had known up to this point in my life was dance. Between my childhood, my adolescence, college, going to New York, I started to resent it. And any dancer will tell you it's like their first marriage, it's their first love. And it became a job. And so I got
Really?
home and I was tired and I was burnt out. Uh, Burnt out is an understatement.
Hmm.
um, but I didn't dance for 3.5 years.
Hmm.
And I needed to because I didn't want to hate it. Like,
Right.
this is why I get up in the morning. This is a part of who I am. Um, but I need to maintain my love for it. It's like
Mm.
any healthy relationship. It's like sometimes you have to take space. That for me is what dance was. And he, God bless him, he kind of like knocked on my door and he was like, "Hey, it's time.
Yeah.
Like, come on." So 2 years ago he had me start subbing there. And so I would just like pick up, random dance classes or even like dance fitness classes because it's obviously in my wheelhouse.
Hmm.
But then within like 2 months I had my own like regular standing class. So I have my little moment of joy once
Hmm.
a week that I go do the thing. There are times that I honestly am like, I should start a contemporary dance company in Kansas City, but then I'm like, how and
Is there any
when?
around?
And there are definitely
Okay.
dance companies. I mean, Kansas City actually
Well, I mean,
has.
like in specifically that style of.
I think there's.
I guess if you had a school, you'd want to offer wide array of different
Well, so
styles.
not even like a studio. I would
Mm,
want to do like an adult performance company.
gotcha.
Um, I never wanted to own a studio. That was never something I ever wanted to do. But I
Kind of
think,
becomes more about business rather than the love of
yeah.
dancing.
And I love kids so much, and I taught kids for a really long time. But I would never want to be on the owner side of
Yeah.
it. Just not something that I feel passionate about.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah, dancing is a monster, man. Like not in a bad way, but it's difficult from what I've heard. I mean, it's a lot of hours, a lot of traveling, a
mhm.
lot of, I mean, I'm sure even the physical fitness part of it. I mean, what you guys do is insane. I
Well,
mean,
and I look at the dancers nowadays
yeah.
because I'm not going to say I'm old, but like
Hmm.
my dance body is old compared to what it used to be, right? So like
Yeah.
even when I teach on Wednesdays, I joke. I'm like, this is the 35 and over version. If you want to like go full out, you can do this, but we're gonna do this. It's like
So
everything's.
is that for like regular people that have never danced before
Oh,
can
heck yeah.
go?
It's
Okay.
like all levels. I mean,
Oh,
you
that's
have girls
cool.
that have never danced a day in their life and they're
Yeah.
like, I want to do something new. Like, this is a different kind of exercise for me to do.
That's awesome.
Up to like girls that they have a very serious dance background, which for them it's like getting back into, for me, getting
Hmm.
back into that love of dance, and it gives them an outlet to do that. Something really cool that they do is one time a year we put on like a straight up adult dance recital, a little
Oh,
showcase.
that's cool.
So
Gives them something to work
well,
for.
exactly.
Yeah.
So for the girls, so it's like they have a background in this. It's like they get another chance to be on stage, and then for people who have never had that opportunity, it is just like mind blowing to like
Yeah.
learn a dance, like get the look and get up on a stage and have people applaud you. Like,
Hmm.
so many people get to go through life and never experience that. So I love this
I know.
place so much.
That's
It's so
awesome.
inclusive.
Yeah, and it gives people purpose too. Like
Yeah.
having a hobby
Mhm.
gives you, and I understand that not everyone has the ability to. I mean, it does require money. It can get expensive at times, or people who have large families. I'm sure it can be hard, but if somehow you can one class, two
Mhm.
classes, or something,
Yeah.
fit that in, like especially adults, like get with your significant other and talk to them and,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I need this.
Yeah.
Like me, I'm 32 years old. Like I go and roll with a bunch of dudes. Like
Yeah.
I'm sure probably think that's weird, like, what do you like to go do jujitsu? Is that, what is that? It's I don't know. It's something I love. It keeps me physically fit. It becomes a family.
Mm-hmm.
It gets me out of my head,
Yep.
which is probably the biggest thing that I fight. I mean, I remember there was a quote from Elon Musk, and this is kind of a lot. I wish I had how smart he was, but I understand his pain when he speaks about this. He's like, everybody wants to be me until you're inside my head. I can't
Yeah.
I can't shut it off.
Yeah.
And I'm not to that level of Elon Musk, but I understood what he said. I have a hard time doing that. I
Yeah.
have a brain that like it's like I can't stop.
The overthinking.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's all of us.
like stop.
Yeah.
But I feel like some people, I call them bots. My brother calls them that. My brother says that all the time. I used to call them NPCs, I think. Like in a video game, they're the little computer characters that just walk around. I like sometimes I look at them and I'm like, God, I wish I was you. Like, because I just know some people, and maybe I don't know behind closed doors, but it just seems like they just live life day by day.
See, I look at that and I'm like, okay, hold on. Because it could be either way. They could be so mentally and emotionally proficient and have, done the work and actually trained the mind like the muscle it is to access that level of
like content, like to be content.
Peace.
Yeah.
And right, so it's that internal peace and learning how to direct the mind instead of letting the mind direct you. Like there are people who do that. Or is it just a lack of awareness? So it's like a lot of people, there's a lack of awareness and they don't even stop to question what they're thinking or how they're feeling.
It looks peaceful though sometimes.
I mean, ignorance is bliss, right? I wish I could do that because my brain never stops and I'm one of the most like emotionally expressive and just like people will say to me like, what's one of your favorite things that you like about yourself? I'm like, my ability to feel so deeply. Like I'm a Scorpio and an Enneagram 4. Like, woe is motherfucking me. Like I feel the most feels, right? But it's also like my greatest demise. It's not letting that take me down.
It's because, and I understand that feeling as well. It's because being so in touch with your emotions, it can be good and bad because you can be very positive in the moment about it and be able to express that. But then also when you're in those dark times and everybody knows it around you. So like a lot of the times people that know me say like, you wear your heart on your sleeve, man, like especially with my facial expressions, like we can always tell how you're feeling that day. And it's like, it's not like I try to, it's just somehow my body feels very strongly about everything in my life. Like, and when I'm feeling a certain way, I can't stop it from coming out. It just comes out. And the older I get, I'm getting better at managing that, because I mean, I just think it's I don't think it's right for me to always be that expressive. Like, sometimes I have to kind of tone it down a little bit. And,
I don't know. It makes me like,
I just think it affects other people sometimes.
There's being emotionally reactive, right? And there's choosing to respond. I think that goes right into like the training piece of it, which I feel like I've been training my entire life, but we're forever evolving and shifting and changing. So it's like you get better, you get worse, but I think that can easily be taken into the realm of like someone could hear that and be like, oh, I need to like stuff my emotions down. I need to hide what I'm feeling. And it's like, no. Because I'm a holistic health coach, right? Let's bring this full circle. Anything that you repress and you stuff that shit down, well, the body keeps the score. There's a whole book about it.
Okay.
We want to know like one of the root causes of disease and dis-ease. It's not processing the emotional experience. So I love that you said, I feel a lot of emotions in my body. I don't even know that you said that and the impact that statement has, because a lot of people say, I feel things and they keep it up here, right? They cut it off, but emotions do live in the body. So if we allow them to fully express, it doesn't mean fully express and react and cause a shit show and have it impact others, but allow the emotion to fully express itself and learn how to be with it and process it in a healthy way, cope with it in a healthy way if we need to, let that shit go and move
Yeah.
on.
There was something you said on when I was reading your website, that you were a different person 20 years
Oh,
ago.
hell yeah.
Can you elaborate on that?
That was so funny that you said that. I'm like, how old am I? Okay, so I'm 39. I lovingly say I was a shit show in my 20s. I went to New York City
I
and,
think a lot of us were.
oh my God. I mean, and I know like how I grew up and what I was exposed to, like what was considered normal. So I got to New York, and while I was terrified and my biggest fear was that everyone knew I didn't know what I was doing and someone was like out to get me, I was like terrified. I still like, found my groove, I found my way. But I partied my ass off.
Yeah.
Partied my ass off.
I was there. I know.
So
Same here.
I mean, we can look at it in two realms in terms of like who I was 20 years ago. Yes, I was dancing. I didn't work out. Like I did strength training, any kind of exercise, formal exercise. That was not in my life. I had a really unhealthy relationship with food because up until this point in my life, all I had known was eating disorders, either not eating or eating, making myself throw up. Right.
Yeah.
So,
I feel like that was a big one back.
oh,
Like when
hell
I
yeah.
was
And
in high
especially as a
school.
dancer is like, I have to be
Yeah.
skinny. I have to be skinny. I have to be
What
skinny.
is that called? Bulimia or
Yeah.
something like that?
Yeah. So all I'd ever known was a fucked up relationship with food. How you're like, why do women just want to be small? It's like also that whole thing of like, we're taught to not take up space. We're taught to diminish ourselves and minimize ourselves to make other people and men and other women, right?
Gotcha.
More comfortable, right?
Gotcha.
We're not taught to be empowered in who we are and have a voice, to set boundaries. We're taught to overextend ourselves. Anyway, those are different rabbit holes that we could go down, but not even a decade ago. Like, it's not even been a decade. I was 30 years old and I had kind of a come to Jesus moment. I'm going to call it my come to Androck moment. Because you also mentioned, I don't think girls are taught a lot about strength training. Well, I sure as shit wasn't. So when I did decide, like, okay, I'm going to start working out, I would go to spin class, and I fell in love with spin class. But then I was like, okay, I'm going to try like this body pump class. I hated it, but there's this other kind of like total body, like weightlifting class. So I would just go, I was a little class bunny. I would hop from class to class at New York City sports clubs. And I remember I got pulled out of class one day by Andy Pierre. And he said to me, "What are you doing in there?" He was like, "You're an athlete." Like, this man had never met me in my life. He's giant black Haitian man, like giant. He's like, "What are you doing in there? You don't belong there. You're an athlete." I'm like, "How does he know?" And I was like, he was like, "Come on." He was like, "Let me show you around the gym floor." And I never stepped foot on the gym floor because, like so many women, I was like, I don't know what to do. Cut back to me first arriving in New York City, where I was like, oh my God, everyone's going to know that I don't know what I'm doing. Same mentality stepping foot on the gym floor. Everyone's going to know that I'm full of shit and I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Right? That's like a limiting belief that stops so many people from doing things in life. So this man became a trainer. Like, he actually was a trainer. He wasn't just some creepy guy who saw me. He was like a trainer at the gym.
There's those guys out there.
Yeah,
like
right.
Yeah.
So I called him Panda. He called me Pegs. He was my trainer for 5 years. Yeah. And he's the reason that I became a trainer. He's the reason that I became a health coach. But when we first started working together, he said to me, we started talking about nutrition, and he was like, okay, I want to stop drinking for 30 days. And he said it super casually. I looked this man in the eye and I said, go fuck yourself. He was like, no, really, I want you to like not drink, see like what this can do for you. He had no earthly idea how much I drank.
Yeah.
And it was an excessive amount. I mean, like probably at least five.
Was it the typical like weekend type deal?
No,
or
it was every single
throughout
day.
the week?
It was every single day.
Yeah.
But it was like part of the lifestyle that I was living. Like, I was pumping caffeine all day long to get me through like my day and my life. And then I would come home and I'd be so fucking wired and be like, how do I sleep? Well, I just start drinking. But this is like, we look at the conditioning, we look at like culture, we look at society and what's considered normal.
Yeah.
Like, what's wrong with having a few cocktails before bed? Everyone else does it, right? Yeah. I didn't think there was anything wrong with it. Until someone asked me to stop, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I can do that.
Yeah.
So I had to take a long, hard look at like, my own shit and my own demons that was refusing, were there. But I did it. And I did it for
Mm,
longer than 30 days. And I, to this day, I tell him, over the course of 5 years, like he became my chosen family.
mm.
To this day, I tell him, like, you changed the trajectory of my life. Like, you changed the person that I am.
Yeah, it's funny how that when things are legal, like alcohol,
Mm-hmm.
cigarettes, stuff like that, people think that those don't have addictive properties or caffeine. That's probably got to be
Yeah.
the most
Yeah.
addictive thing, which I'm at fault of it too. I'm drinking caffeinated drink
It's the
right
most
now,
overused stimulant, like
Yeah.
legal stimulant out there.
But people aren't aware of that. They think that, oh, I can stop. It's like, well,
Mm.
can
Can you
you?
though?
Yeah, can you? Because I had the same
How's that
issue.
migraine? Can you
Yeah,
though?
yeah. Women, I hear that from women all the time. I have a headache. I
Uh-huh.
have a headache. Why is that? What's going on with that? I'm not saying it's just a woman thing, but I hear that from a lot of women. They're
Um,
always like, I have a headache. I have Is it just because like the drinking and the caffeine and
I would
the
venture
or
to say,
lack of water or
I would say that 90% of humans, if not more, are running around dehydrated because no one actually knows how to truly, hydrate their body.
Mhm.
But overconsumption of caffeine, and then if we
Yeah.
look at women and
Or
the,
not eating like you
yeah,
said.
exactly what I say. The
Well, that's
problem
what I
that
was kind of
most
getting
women
to.
have is not eating enough or eating, consistently
Yeah.
enough, and they let their blood sugar do this. People
Mm.
think the blood sugar is only for diabetics. No, every woman, because you have hormones, you have to worry about your blood sugar. In fact, if
Yeah.
you cared a little bit more about your blood sugar, you'd mitigate a lot of the symptoms that they're dealing with. But yeah,
Got you.
that's sleep, the whole thing,
Yeah. Yeah,
stress.
because I feel like, I'm surrounded by a lot of women. I hear a lot of, I have
Yeah,
headaches.
it's
I'm
not
like,
normal. It's common, but it's not normal.
yeah. I'm like, how much
Yeah.
water have you drank today? Oh, I had 1 cup. I'm like, do you know how much water you're supposed to
Mm-hmm.
drink? I mean, I think, what is it, like 100 ounces or something like that a
100 ounces
day?
is a pretty solid
Depending on your
baseline.
activity
Well,
level?
yeah, and they say
Yeah.
like, okay, what's an easy way to do it? It's like look at your body weight, divide that in half. That's like a great
Mhm.
base. Where people get it totally wrong. I love how we segued into water. Where people get it totally wrong, and this is why one of the reasons why I hate 75 hard is like the whole gallon of water a day. Which, okay, so back to like Andy
I was
and
pretty
like,
big on that
yeah,
too.
Andy and
Yeah.
him changing my life, and I got so hardcore into like working out and eating clean and like doing the thing and like changing my whole lifestyle. There was a period of time where I was a gallon of water girl, like every
Hmm.
single day, and I mean like a bro
Yeah.
carrying around my gallon of water.
The gallon
Um,
jug.
and like I don't. It's funny how for so long I was like, why do I feel so terrible? I feel so terrible. I feel terrible. I have no energy. I'm brain foggy. I have a headache. I have all these things. When we're looking at drinking a gallon of water,
Mm.
you are literally flushing out your own electrolyte stores and you're dehydrating yourself in the process. So it's like the thin line of like drinking too little water and drinking too much.
Hmm.
But I mean, honestly, if we take this back to hormones, it's understanding the importance of minerals like your sodium, your magnesium, and potassium in water and
Hmm.
how to help your body actually uptake those minerals. Because when we just chug a bunch of water, we're
Hmm.
flushing those stores out.
Oh,
And
really?
minerals are actually spark plugs to our hormones. Like we have to have these in the right balance for
Hmm.
everything to work efficiently.
Man, I didn't know
Hmm.
that. It's crazy how it all correlates, like
Yeah.
everything, and I think that's what you were saying too. Is that like there's so much behind it, and where does everybody start?
I know. And that's like there's so many nuances and it's all connected. So where
Yeah,
do
but
I?
that's what's awesome, like about
Yeah.
what you do, and I want to get into right now of when you started, to do. Is it holistic medicine or is it holistic health
I'm a
coach?
holistic health coach. I'm not a doctor. I will not
Okay,
pretend
so
to be a
there
doctor.
is
Yeah.
because I don't know
Yeah.
anything about this. I
So
think
if
my
you
mom
looked
worked
at,
at a place that was
yeah.
holistic medicine, but I didn't know if it all
Yeah. So
correlates or.
as a holistic health coach, I
Uh-huh.
could work for a functional medicine doctor. And that's usually what you're going to
Mhm.
see inside of the world of like holistic health in terms of like,
Mhm.
you know, care from a doctor or physician. You're going to find a functional medicine doctor.
Uh-huh.
I prefer that route over just finding like a homeopathic doctor or a naturopath. Like, not to say that they're like less than, but I like someone, for me personally, who carries the title of functional medicine doctor, knowing that the amount of schooling that they went through with
Gotcha.
it. You can also, in this day and age, find a lot of functional MDs who were also practicing allopathic doctors. Like they still do rounds at hospitals. So
Mm,
they understand both
both.
sides.
That's got to be rare though, I feel.
I mean, here in Kansas City, no, you can actually find it like right down the street
Really?
in Northtown.
Because I
Yeah.
feel like if you're on one side, you're only on that side. Like
Mm-mm.
they're not integrating at all.
No, you have a lot of, especially in this day and age, a lot of doctors where I think it used to be very divided.
Uh-huh.
I think you then have a lot of doctors who've been practicing for a long time and going, okay, something's a little off,
Hmm.
and then they go the functional medicine route.
Do you think
I mean,
that's
even
with?
like Dr. Mark Hyman, who's a very big name,
Uh-huh.
that's how he started. I mean, he was, you know,
Do you think that's with the access, just with technology, being incorporated a lot more with all the stuff we can find on YouTube and
mm,
podcasts and
no,
stuff
I
like that?
think
People are
it's
starting to see that.
I think
Oh, there's other
really
ways.
smart people started to make connections about what's actually driving our health and what's actually making us sick.
Hmm.
I mean, because alternative medicine, it's weird that it's still considered that, has been
Yeah.
around forever and ever and ever. Um,
Hmm.
but I mean, even though in my world, like that's the norm, functional medicine that's the thing. That's kind of the only thing, unless you have an acute problem. Like we love doctors, we have to have doctors, we need them when
Yeah.
we need them. But when it comes to like my optimal health, I'm always going to go the functional route. And I will tell you, there was a year and a half of my life that I was really, really sick.
Yeah.
Um, I had like the wildest symptoms that came up. Like, you ever seen the movie Hitch?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
With Will
Like
Smith.
any given day I would wake up and my face would be swollen. I had the
Mm,
most debilitating brain fog, just like chronic exhaustion. I mean, this went on for 2 years, but for a year and a half of my life, I was in and out of every doctor you can think of. Like started at primary care, I went to cardiology, I went to radiology, rheumatology, dermatology, allergy. I got tossed around to all of them, and it wasn't until rheumatology was like, "Oh, you might have a thing, but we don't want to like go down the rabbit hole looking for an
mm,
autoimmune disease." Dermatology was like, "Oh, it could be this. Why don't you go to allergy?" It was when they started bouncing me back to each other. Allergy was like, "Go to dermatology." Actually, dermatology, we want you to go to rheumatology. Where I was like, "I can't do this
yeah.
anymore," and so I was like, fuck it. I will make the investment. I'll go the functional medicine route. I wanted to do that all along anyways, because it's a pretty penny.
Hmm.
It's not accepted by insurance companies. Why? Because it makes us healthy. It makes us well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. Sad.
So I went that route and I did the damn thing, and it was the best investment I've ever made. I finally got the answers. I Once we found like the root cause of it, which was stress.
Mm,
Um, I never had another like flare up. I've it's been 2 years and my face has never done the thing, and I've been in some like really crazy seasons of stress since then. But
well, what have you done to manage that stress?
um a lot of it is like once I knew, okay, it is the stress piece, but understanding the impact that was having on my gut health and the impact
Mm,
that was then having on my hormones, understanding what I need to do to balance that, because a lot of it was like first addressing like, oh, because your gut microbiome is messed up. Like I had, small intestine bacterial overgrowth. I had leaky gut.
I seen you're on your, was it your website, or you talked about it? You had like a lot of
Yeah, like I
stuff
had,
going on.
and
Yeah.
a lot of people do. They just don't know that they
Some
have
of it I
it.
was like, what is that?
Yeah.
What is
So like
that?
actually doing like comprehensive testing to like find out what is going on in my body, and
Yeah.
not like I like the term test, don't guess. Um, you know, I had to do a really intensive elimination diet. Do I think that that's the answer to everything? No, but in my case, to get my body to stop freaking out, it worked.
By doing what? Eliminating what?
So I had what is known as a histamine intolerance.
Uh-huh.
So because of the gut issues, because of the chronic stress,
Yeah.
and this is, this wasn't just like an acute problem. Like something came up and it was like, oh my God, I'm going through a stressful time in life. Like life is so hard. It
Yeah.
was like years. It was like, consider my life in New York, like the last like 5 years. So like when I like cleaned my act up and I was living this healthy life, I took that to the extreme, which we can go back and talk about all that, right?
Hmm.
And how I actually landed to where I am today. But you talk about burnout, you talk about, we'll call it adrenal fatigue. The real name for it, we're going to call it HPA axis dysfunction. Um, in layman's terms, it's burning the candle at both ends, so that, like I said, if you're constantly living in a state of fight or flight and pumping out cortisol and adrenaline, everything else
Hmm.
is going to downregulate.
Okay.
So the impact that had on my hormones, the impact that had on my gut, the over exercising, the under eating, like all of those things, and then coming back to Kansas City, that in and of itself is stressful. You go from New York City to Kansas City and you're starting your life over, like
Hmm.
that's stressful, right?
Yeah.
even though I wasn't like, oh my God, it's still on the nervous system, it's a lot.
Hmm.
And just different life circumstances, relationships, starting a business, the pandemic, like all of these things. It all kind of compiled. And so I developed a histamine intolerance, and it was the body's like way of saying like, hey, we've been like communicating to you for a really long time the shit's not
Yeah.
okay, so we're just going to make it really bad and like on your face so you can't ignore it anymore.
Gotcha.
So in terms of elimination diet, I mean, the basic like well-known things like eggs, gluten, dairy, coffee, beans, um those were like the first to go. That, I mean, a lot of people do that just to uh even test like a sensitivity to dairy or gluten or eggs.
Yeah.
Like those are the most common ones. But because it was histamine, my friends joke and say I had like 5 foods I can eat. So things that you would think are inherently healthy, I couldn't eat. So spinach, strawberries, eggplant, every kind of citrus, avocados, different kinds of berries, any kind of vinegar, basically any condiment. Um,
So you're almost to like a all meat diet only, right?
I had like some, like I could have zucchini, I could have peppers, I could
Mm,
have Brussels sprouts, broccoli, carrots. Actually, carrots and apples. I had to kind of like rotate those because it was like, here are foods that your body like is okay with. Here are foods that your body is kind of wants you to, take it easy on, and then here
mhm.
are the foods that your body absolutely hates. And for me, those were gluten and beef, which is funny because I eat a lot of beef. My significant other's name, his friends call him Big Beef Keef. So it's funny now, like what my
Yeah.
body's able to process and tolerate. But I mean, this was in terms of like processed foods. You think of like processed foods, not like the idea of like cooking is processing, but like foods that come in a package. I could eat quinoa, rice cakes, and siete cassava tortillas.
Mm,
Those are the only foods that I bought that came
very,
in a
very
package.
specific.
Very specific because it's, the ingredients and everything. It's like
Yeah.
I couldn't have ketchup. I couldn't have salsa, which is my favorite food.
Mm.
Even like I love Primal Kitchen's ketchup, right? Tomatoes are high histamine to begin with, but even like looking at the ingredients, it's like, okay, it has balsamic vinegar. That's really high histamine. So I mean, it was tough, but
I think that's the best route to go is that elimination, what you're talking about,
I
because
I do and I don't, and I will say
really,
because I lived it firsthand.
I don't think for over a long period of time.
But
I think
that's
to
where
start
like it
out.
gets difficult. It's like if you have obvious symptoms and like something's going awry, I think that it can be beneficial to work with a doctor to consider elimination diet. But I honestly think that that can then on the other side drive a lot of food fear. And it's like I'm in the space of trying to have a healthy relationship with food in my body, right? And I've done so much work to,
Mhm.
you know, shift out of like every disorder. I mean, I'm telling you, anorexic to bulimic to orthorexia to binge eating. Like I'm I'm a overachiever. I'm like,
Yeah.
can I just hit them all? Great. So it's like trying to get to this healthy space, but then doing this, extreme protocol. And it's like, yeah, I had amazing, we're gonna call them results. Like all the inflammation went down. I never
Mhm.
had a flare up, all these things, but living this extremely restrictive lifestyle, like I still won't eat a strawberry. I still won't eat spinach.
Mhm.
I'd probably be fine, and it's like
But the fear of going
the
back.
fear of going back to it. And like so many women, this is where I don't encourage it, is that so many women think, well, okay, whether it's like they know that they're generally inflamed, they know that they have hormone imbalances, they feel like they have weight loss resistance or insulin resistance, something may, a lot of them start to believe, well, I just have to start eliminating more and more foods. And it's like, no, that's not the answer.
Mm.
My case is a little bit different, knowing like that I had to actually eliminate the trigger that was causing my face to more or less explode, right? But if we're looking at just general imbalances or trying to um tame inflammation, which is the root cause of a lot of things, I don't think the first answer should be elimination diet, because then it's just breeding more of the same unhealthy mindset that if we kind of look at that to begin with, I
Mhm.
think, and that's like something to consider. A lot of people think like, oh my God, I have to heal my gut. And oh my God, I have to like mitigate stress and I have to do all these things and I have to heal my hormones. And it's the energy that we're approaching that from is so dysregulated.
Mm-hmm.
We're approaching it from the same space that got us sick. So it's like I'm approaching my health from the same energetic and mental and emotional space that I did that got me sick. If we were looking at like the overtraining, the,
Mm-hmm.
you know, not eating enough, because most women don't. If we're looking at all of that and the hypervigilance and the people pleasing, like all of that, there's a quote that says you can't heal in the same environment that made you sick. That also is the environment of your mind.
Gotcha.
Does that make
Gotcha.
sense?
No, it does. It
Yeah.
does. Like we talked about the mind, body, and spirit, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
those are the three things. If you were to give advice to women right now on where to start or how to start, at least, just like what's a foundation? Like, what do they need to start doing to start, incorporating these things into their life?
Um, so I say pick an area. Uh, because if I say like focus on stress, focus on exercise, focus on, nutrition, focus on sleep,
Mm-hmm.
reach for the low hanging fruit. Um, because if you approach it all at once, it's going to be overwhelming. It's going to be too much. So if it's like if you're not ready to approach like your nutrition yet and that feels unsafe to you, don't start there.
Mm-hmm.
You can start by educating and empowering yourself. Doesn't mean you have to make changes right away. And I
Mm-hmm.
really am a fan of the notion of adding in and crowding out versus eliminating. So it's
What does
like
that mean?
so a lot of people think like, oh my God, I have to eat clean. And so it's like, okay, I have to stop eating everything. So they have this list of foods that they can no longer eat,
Mm.
right? That puts us in that restrictive mindset. That puts us in a place to create food rules. That puts us in a prime place to like live in that all or nothing mentality. That's what right there is the root of like the restrict binge cycle that keeps people stuck. Um, so it's like if I, instead of focusing on what I have to eliminate, what if I focus on what I can add in? So it's like,
Gotcha.
how can I add in more nutrient density? Like, oh, this lady said eat grass fed beef. What if I try adding that in 1 to 2 times a week? What if I, try adding in like antioxidant rich berries? What if I try eating some cooked dark leafy greens? And it's like, well, I don't like this and I don't like that. And it's like, you're also not a child. So try it. Food can taste really
Mm.
good. And that's like part of my job is helping people learn how to make healthy food taste really good. Because you're not going to miss, I'm not asking you to eliminate anything. I'm asking you to just add it in alongside.
That's a big thing, though, what you said is making food taste good
Mm-hmm.
because the whole misconception about dieting is it sucks.
Mm-hmm.
When I've seen plenty of your Instagram stories,
Yeah, we
and
don't eat boring food in our
yeah,
house.
I'm like, damn, you're making me
We
hungry
do
right
not
now.
eat boring food in our house. I
But
mean,
that creates
you got two foodies that get
longevity,
together.
right? I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
like if the
Yeah.
food is good, you're going to continue to want to do that
Yeah.
diet in a
Yeah.
sense.
I mean, and there's a lot, there are barriers and there are personal barriers for people,
Hmm.
like convenience, right?
Yeah,
People don't want to take the time to cook. So it's like where do I start? It's like
yeah,
start cooking one home cooked meal a night if you don't do that.
yeah.
Because home
And
cooked
get
versus store bought is like a million times
and
better.
don't make cooking, and I mean, I can't speak of it. I mean, I don't cook really, so I need to start helping out and cooking more. But like I cook little stuff for myself, eggs, stuff like that, little stuff for the kids and stuff. But yeah, my wife, she does more of the cooking, and I understand it can be a chore at
Mm-hmm.
times. You cook so much over time, it's like it's so tempting to be like, let's just order Chinese. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, or let's just go out to eat. But creating that lifestyle of I need to do this, just like if you were to do with working out, it's like make it like brushing your teeth.
Mm-hmm.
You got to get it done,
Yeah.
and just more of, do it. And over time, it'll become normal,
Yeah.
but how do you start that? I mean, you just do it. I mean,
You just do it. You
you
just
just
get
got
over
to
and
do it,
do it. I
right? I
think
mean, there's no other way to
yeah.
explain it.
I mean, there's, again, like I said, there's nuances to everything.
Hmm.
It's like if you don't, we look for starters. It's like, what are the barriers? What's
Yeah.
getting in your way? If you don't have a kitchen that's like feasibly set up for you to like
Yeah.
go in and cook, let's start there. Let's
Yeah.
set you up,
Get you
with,
some pots and pans
yeah, get
and,
some, like, get good
get
quality
excited about
knives,
it.
get a nice wooden cutting board, not that
Yeah.
plastic bullshit. Like,
Oh man.
it's like having the right
Yeah.
utensils first and foremost. not only like acquiring, but learning about
Yeah.
high quality ingredients. Cause that's another thing. It's like you can cook, but if you're using shit ingredients,
Yeah.
so it's high quality ingredients. And that's actually one of my favorite things to do is go grocery shopping with my clients and teaching them like how to navigate the grocery store. So it's like, you again empower yourself to know what's worth my money because life is expensive
Hmm.
and what's not. Because a lot of the stuff at the supermarket, it's not worth your money. But I always say to like people who are like, okay, well, I feel like I just look for recipes, right? And it's like, stop looking for recipes. You don't need a recipe. You can have a Pinterest board of shit that sounds good to you if you
Hmm.
want, but really you're just creating decision fatigue and overwhelming yourself.
Yeah.
I always tell my clients like, what are the foods that you already like and how can we start preparing those in a conscious healthy way?
Hmm.
But it's like, okay, if you are eating out all the time, what do you enjoy? Who doesn't love Mexican, right? So
Oh
it's like
yeah.
if you go out to dinner and you have a really good meal, start thinking to yourself, keep a running notes tab, in your phone of like, I like this food, how can I make it at home? But I'm also my significant other and I we're very different in that like he needs to have a food truck. He should be like on a cooking show. Like this, he goes to the extremes, right? It's
Yeah.
it's just his thing. And I love to cook, but I also just kind of view food as like it's
Fuel.
it's nourishment,
Yeah.
it's fuel. I don't need a big production. Actually, the simpler it is, the better.
That's how I am.
So and it's like
I
a
don't care
lot
what's in
of
front of me. I'm usually hungry
yeah.
enough. I'll eat
Yeah, a
it.
lot of especially people in my space, they think that, they look at nutritionists, dietitians, health coaches, whatever the case may be, of like, "Oh my God, I need recipes from you. What recipes do you follow?" And it's like, we don't. The most that we do is like elemental, like kind of prepping, where it's like we have different proteins, different carbs, different vegetables that are
Hmm.
like already ready to go, or we cook something from scratch if we need to, and then it's like assemble it, throw on a really yummy sauce. Like we don't overcomplicate it, we don't overthink it.
And people do.
Well,
People
they do. Here's the
overcomplicate it.
thing. Here's the thing is that I think we've also in our society and on our, our culture, it's like understanding that yes, food is a celebration. It is family.
Hmm.
It is, you know,
The culture behind it
it
is
is
that,
like
yeah.
there's so many things to love
Hmm.
about it. And I say never lose sight of that. But on the flip side, it's like food is medicine, food is information. It's all of these other things.
Hmm.
But we live in a time where people need their food to be an experience for them.
Yeah.
It has to somehow change their mood. It has
Hmm.
to make them feel better. And whether they admit that or not, that's there.
Yeah. I think another thing too is culturally. Like I come from a mixed background, my father being Mexican, my mother being white. So seeing like on my Mexican side, the types of foods and people can gravitate to just eating those foods,
Mhm.
it's like they're not always the healthiest.
Yeah.
We use a lot of oil, a lot of
Mhm.
oil, but it becomes a culture thing
Mhm.
of this is what I should do.
Yeah.
And really, I think we should more of look at, food as fuel, make it taste good, but let's eat healthier and let's not associate so much. You can have those things. Let's
Mhm.
try to balance it. Let's not have those things every day,
Yeah.
but let's look at it more of like what we're putting in our body, what's going to make our bodies run at the best way it
Mhm.
can, more functionally, and let's try to incorporate those foods in order to achieve that.
Yeah.
But it's hard. You go to the grocery store, like you said, you like to grocery shop with your clients. Man, where do you start? There's so many different like things you could choose, and on top of that, you have products that claim
Mhm.
something,
And that's what I do
and
is I
they're
teach them
not.
how to
You know.
decipher and like how to, if I said to you like, well, what's look at the back of the label.
Hmm.
9 times out of 10 people will go, "Oh, it says there's like 210 calories and this is how much fat is in there." No, that's not the label that we're looking at.
Yeah.
Even if I said like look at, the ingredients label, they'll still look at the nutrition facts and they'll
Right.
solely look at like calories and fat because that's how our brains have
Yeah.
been
No one's looking
conditioned,
at the ingredients in it.
right?
Yeah.
So it's like, understanding like, okay, a step below, how do we look at that ingredients label and actually determine? I'm going to give you a quick little tip here.
And what are half the things that
Right.
are on there?
That's the question. If you can't pronounce it, you
Yeah.
can probably assume that it's really highly processed. Here's
Correct.
the other little tip is that the first 5 ingredients on that list are going to be in the highest quantity in that product, if
I
that
didn't
makes
know
sense.
that.
So if you got, even if it's number 5 on the list and it's
Hmm.
sugar or one of the various names that they give
Yeah.
sugar,
Corn syrup and stuff. Yeah.
mhm, mhm, that's like, so we have to look at, we all know the impact of sugar on our health. I think the other thing is, what was I going to say? I totally forgot what I was going to say. Doesn't matter.
Sugar is in everything. I
Oh,
mean,
it is
it's
and
it's
everything.
it's insane how many products that I've looked at. I look at the back and the sugar's like, what is it like? Some of the stuff I've seen, like 70 grams of sugar. I
Oh, I
always
looked at
liked,
a Dr. Pepper the other day and I was like, there are 40 grams of sugar in this
yeah,
thing?
I know. And then you think like, oh, well, what's 70 grams? And then there's pictures of,
How many teaspoons that is?
yeah,
Yeah.
like bags. Like
Uh-huh.
I remember they had like a Monster can, and it was like half a sandwich bag of sugar. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, well, that puts it in
Yeah.
perspective. Holy shit.
That just made me remember what I was going to say. Is that okay, so you think of like the foods that we grew up on, especially, it's like, what's a food that kind of everyone loves? Doritos, right? I
Oh yeah.
love a Dorito. They're
Yep.
like the ultimate pool food.
Hmm.
Um, if we look at these, conventional foods, they are designed to be highly
Addictive.
palatable and
Oh, okay.
addictive.
Yeah, addictive. Yeah.
Same. We can just be raw and say it. They're designed to be addictive. When I said at the beginning, you have guys in white coats in a laboratory, their job, they're food scientists, their job is to make food be absolutely
Hmm.
delicious and addictive so that the consumer wants more of it. So if people are eating a diet that consists predominantly of these things, your taste buds straight up get desensitized. So it's no wonder that you go to eat like what we'll call a healthy meal. Like there are actual nutrient dense carbohydrates, there are vegetables, there are sources of protein not
Hmm.
cooked in a restaurant, right? Tastes like garbage. You're like, this tastes like shit. Yeah,
Yeah.
because your taste buds don't even taste it. So I never want to say like stop eating that shit, but that's the problem.
Yeah.
Stop eating that shit. You can't even taste your
So
food.
you're saying that we're consuming so much garbage
Mhm.
basically that our body doesn't even know
Yeah.
how to process
Yeah. So
actual healthy
it's
food.
exactly. So it's like
I never even thought of that.
you wonder why people try to like eat healthy and like, I can't do this. It tastes so bad. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, because your taste buds haven't adjusted yet. Your taste
Oh
buds are
man.
so evolved and desensitized. Like there's got to be a period that your body learns how to retaste food.
You know, it's funny you say that because I've never been a greens guy. Like
Hmm.
I just don't really care for it. And now I think that, I've been sticking to the health and fitness for a while now. I actually crave green beans. And I'm like, ooh, like a good steamed green beans or asparagus or,
Hmm.
it's like that I like it now. When
Yeah.
before, when I was eating frozen burritos and shit and just like horrible food, like,
You just want more of
yeah,
that.
I
Yeah.
wanted, I always thought like, I don't want that shit, like
Yeah.
I want this. This tastes great. But yeah, you're right. Like
Even,
I didn't even think of that until you
yeah.
said it. Like your body is literally getting conditioned
I mean,
to
this isn't just
this.
your taste buds, it's now affecting your entire
Yeah.
physiology and your brain.
Yeah. And like you said earlier, your gut is pretty
Hmm.
much your second brain.
Well, it
I
is,
mean,
yeah. So if you're
yeah.
eating this food, the impact that it has on your gut alone, this is why it's like a sneak attack. So
Hmm.
your taste buds are desensitized. So it's like your tongue, your mouth wants more of it, right? You
Hmm.
want that satisfaction. You want to be able to taste food. We want food that tastes good. So you have to have more of it. It's like if you okay, think of like a really delicious dessert. I love like cake with like frosting, like really good frosting. I'm a
Yeah.
frosting girl, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you eat the first bite and it's like, oh, everything
Yeah.
lights up. It's like your taste buds are like zing, and you
Yeah.
get that dopamine hit, and it's like, oh hell yeah. By like bite 9, you're like, yeah, whatever, it's whatever. Like it loses that hit.
Hmm.
We're gonna need more of that hit, not just chemically in our brain, but for our tongue. It's like the ninth bite is never as satisfying as the first bite in terms of like just mouth sensation alone.
Right.
The more that we're eating these processed foods, we're now breaking down the bacteria of our gut. So you have like an army of good bacteria. And this is the only time I'm going to refer to like food, anything in that realm is good or bad, is that you legitimately have good bacteria in your gut, right? Their job is to keep you healthy. Um, this is connected to this. It's connected to your immune system. So their job, keep you healthy. But then you have bad bacteria.
Hmm.
It's like the little like ninja army that they sneak attack and they start killing off the good bacteria. They do things like break down the lining of the gut. That's where you get something like leaky gut. So the
Mm.
more processed food and sugar, refined sugar that you're eating, the more that you're empowering and growing the bad bacteria and killing off the good bacteria. The impact that this has, not just on gut health, but overall systemic inflammation and anxiety, ADHD, depression, like the way that it impacts mental health, sleep, like all of these things. Um, like, I don't know if you've ever heard that 90% of the serotonin in your body is made in the gut.
I
Do
didn't
you know
know that.
that?
No,
90%. So
really.
serotonin is your good
Yeah.
feeling hormone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you have a poor population of good bacteria and an overgrowth of bad bacteria, think of what that's going to do to your mood.
Yeah.
And you have an entire culture of humans
Mm-hmm.
who are running around anxious, depressed, angry, all the things. They go to the doctor, here's a pill. How often are they asked, what are you eating?
Yeah.
So if we go back to like, okay, need more of the food for it to taste good. The more that we eat it, it's going to fuck up our gut health. But then also, I mean, food is a drug. Um, they've done studies that show that cheese literally has the same. I'm not saying cheese is bad. Cheese is fucking
Don't mess up
delicious.
cheese for me.
Oh my
please.
god, cheese is so
Yeah,
good.
please don't mess it
But
up for
just
me.
like the chemical compound of cheese, it's actually I heard it on a documentary once that it's the most stolen food in the world.
What?
Like, so
Why?
I don't. Part of it had to do with not just like how expensive it can be, but like those big cheese wheels, like people used to like hide shit in them and like smuggle it.
Oh
So
yeah.
therefore making it the most stolen food. But like cheese, there is like an actual chemical compound in it that when we eat it, it sends off the same exact chemical process in the brain as doing a line of coke.
Really?
It's
Holy
like that ding ding ding
shit.
ding ding.
I didn't
Like
know
yeah,
that. No
yeah,
wonder I love cheese.
yeah.
Man. So basically, to sum it up, then we'll sum it up this way so people can understand this. You eat like shit, you're gonna feel like
You're
shit.
gonna feel like shit.
Yeah.
But and the problem is that people don't not eat like shit long enough to know how good they can feel to even tell the difference.
Because they're addicted.
They're addicted. I'll tell you, like when I used to like I used to eat like whatever, like a little baby raccoon, right?
Mhm.
When I started eating more nutrient dense foods and I even went to the string and like would extreme and would only eat clean foods, when I did eat like really processed food or something with a ton of sugar in it, anyone who's done that, like it's like okay, I've gone a period of time without that and they do it again, like you feel that inflammation. Like you feel how the body's just like
Mhm.
you feel the brain fog. You feel
Oh,
the implications
I
of that.
remember feeling like, ugh,
Mm-hmm.
like just nasty,
Mm-hmm.
you
But
know?
people don't get to that point. Not saying you have to go to extremes,
Yeah.
but people just do it on a daily basis every single day, 24/7.
Well, my thing is I couldn't break the habit.
Yeah.
I felt addicted. Like literally, like I wasn't telling myself that. I didn't realize that
Yeah.
until afterwards. But now looking back, it's like, oh, dude, you couldn't break out of that because you weren't aware that you were
Mhm.
addicted to this lifestyle. And
Mhm.
it's not necessarily what I mean, it was my fault. I mean, we all have free will here, but it's also like you said, we were raised. How much do they teach us about nutrition in school? I mean, you have a health class.
Well, yeah, and you're looking at
I
the
don't even
food
remember.
pyramid, which now it's like you
Yeah.
look at the food pyramid, and you can clearly
Have they even
tell that
changed?
someone's being paid.
Yeah. Have they even changed that, or is it still
Oh
being taught in
yeah, and they
schools?
put like something like I don't even remember what cereal it is. Maybe like Frosted Flakes or some bullshit.
Yeah.
As like the healthiest food for you, and kale was like all the way down here, and beef was like all the way down here. Eggs were like
Yeah.
clearly someone is paying somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. That's insane. Like, it's sad. It's sad. Like, I don't understand how that can even infiltrate in our education system.
Yeah.
I mean, but like you said, the money is
Yeah.
the root of all evil. I mean, it changes everything, you know?
I think that one of the hardest things, it's like and maybe this is a question that I have because I as we get a little bit older, I'm a little bit older than you.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that a lot of men like have this kind of visceral reaction and like fear when it comes to like mortality, right? And it's like,
You
oh
think
fuck,
men
like
just have that, or you think everyone has that?
I'm noticing it more with men.
Really?
And I mean, there are probably like different like degrees and like
For sure.
people who have like, done a lot of personal development and like have a very strong spiritual practice probably have one belief. Someone who like, I don't know, I'm sure
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
it's different, but I've mostly seen like this more extreme fear when it comes to men.
Mm-hmm. Why is
Um,
that?
I don't know. You tell me why that is.
I don't know. I mean, I don't want to die, but I mean, I really don't know. I mean, I do think about it at times, especially getting into your 30s now,
Mhm.
you start to be like, well, I mean, I'm almost halfway there,
You
and,
start to think like, what's my purpose? What
yeah,
have I done?
I
What's my
think,
legacy? Like, who am I going to be? Like, who's going to
yeah,
remember me?
I think purpose is a big thing. And I
Yeah.
think also what's being shoved in our faces on social media,
Mhm.
that basically you're not doing enough.
Everyone should just get off social media.
Yeah. Well, I say that, but
But also it's our job.
yeah, yeah,
That's weird. That's weird.
exactly.
It's our job.
Well, I think it's a tool,
It is.
and I've said
Yeah.
it before. It can
Yeah.
be used for good. It can be used for bad.
Yeah.
I can use a hammer to hit you in the head, or I can build a house.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
it just depends on how you use it. The
Yeah.
only problem is the addictive properties in it.
Mhm. It's that
You're
dopamine fix
yeah, that
again. Yeah.
dopamine that hit every single time, and we don't realize that.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm guilty of it too. And it just sucks because I learned so much on it, and I get to meet incredible people
Mhm.
like you and other
Thank you.
people. But I find myself looking at dumb shit too.
Yeah.
So it's like
Yeah.
shit I shouldn't be looking
No,
at
I
that's
totally get
literally
it.
wasting my
Mhm.
time, and I could be doing something else. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, everything is balance, like we've talked about during this whole conversation. Moderation, balance. If you can create that balance in your life, I think that's the key. I don't think
Yeah.
it should be an extreme of eliminate it completely.
Yeah.
Just set a timer, 2 hours, like a day or
Yeah.
3 hours or
Yeah.
something. You know what I mean? And try to stick to it. Are you going to be able to stick to it all the time? Probably
Mhm.
not, but at least try and see if you can. But yeah, I mean, I think if from the male perspective, I think that is a big thing. I think there's so much, I think, being pushed in our face that, I'm 30 something. I don't own my own business, and I need to be this type of
Yeah.
guy. And, I should run my relationship like this and all this stuff
There's
that,
a lot of pressure.
yeah, we're made to
Yeah.
believe. And I mean, really, not, one size doesn't fit all. You need to figure out, what works with you,
Yeah.
but, I think that's going back to the mortality factor. It's like that could be why men would think about it a lot.
Yeah.
But I could also see why females would think about it too. I mean, I'm sure they deal with just enough, the trying to be looking like this celebrity
Mhm.
or,
I think, and the conversation or the whole point of this was not like to go down a mortality rabbit hole, and
mhm.
I'll tell you like why I'm asking
Hey,
this to
on this
begin with.
podcast, we
No,
go down
I
a lot of
love
rabbit
all the
holes.
rabbit holes. I'm here for it. I'm
Yeah.
like, that's what I generally do. I think on both sides, now that we're talking about it, it's like if you're looking outside of yourself for the answer and for the key to your success, and if I
Mhm.
check these boxes, this is when you get to a certain point in your life, and this happens every single day. I mean, it doesn't matter if a person's 40, it doesn't matter if they're 60, 70, that they've gone through life checking the boxes and they finally get there and they go, fuck. I don't like my life. I don't know how I got here. I don't even know what I like. I don't know who I am. I'm not even sure if I like myself.
Mhm.
Right? So there's that pressure of like, well, if I have to do these things to have some level of success, but it's like, wait a minute, is that your definition of success? Is that really what's going to bring you fulfillment? So like
Yeah.
flipping that, and it's like, what's your definition of fulfillment? What's your soul's
Yeah. And
purpose?
what are those people dealing
Yeah.
with? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And again, we're looking at highlight reels.
Yeah.
My whole thing was like, you know, we could say people on both sides, they worry about like mortality and death is it's
Yeah.
inevitable. Aging is inevitable. So in our 30s, we don't necessarily have to face the ramifications of our choices.
Mhm.
We hear of friends where it's like, fuck, he was only how old and he had a heart attack, or like, oh shit, like, can you believe that, this person has that, and like diseases start to pop up, but it's
Cancer.
not,
Yeah.
it's not directly affecting us, right? It's not touching us yet,
Mhm.
but it's getting really honest with yourself, because there is a lot of kickback when it comes to nutrition and lifestyle, because it's not just what you eat, it's like your overall lifestyle.
Mhm.
It's like, are you moving your body? Are you finding enjoyable ways to move your body? Are you managing stress? And that's, the stress outside of you and the stress within you. um we didn't even get down like the whole like how you live in terms of like the products that you use in your home and your body and the impact that has on your health.
Mhm.
So there's like all of these nuances, and I get it, it's hard and it can be a lot to take on, but it's not, for most people, it's not who you are yet. You've been operating like this, your entire life. So it's like slowly opening yourself up into this world, making tiny shifts when you can to become that person, because it all comes back to the question of who do you want to be when you're 70 years old
Mhm.
or 80? My
Yeah.
grandma is 96 years old, so it's like you cannot deny the impact of how you're living today, how that's going to affect you down the line. Because
Yeah.
a lot of people don't even know this. Like, you look at Alzheimer's and they think like, oh my God, how did this person get Alzheimer's? Like, it's just a thing that happens to people. No, it's diabetes 3.
Oh, really?
It's driven by a poor lifestyle and a terrible fucking diet that eats your brain.
Huh.
Yeah. So it's like,
Yeah, I guess there's always a road to everything, right? I mean,
there's
there's
a
always an
road to everything.
explanation. Yeah.
Dementia, it's like, yes, it's like there are things that, and this is another rabbit hole, there are things that can be like hereditary and it's a part of your genetic makeup. But that's
Mm.
where we can point to epigenetics, where it's like, this is not a death sentence. This is not who you are. Through the choices that you make with your lifestyle, you now have the power to turn that genetic switch off or on. If
Mm.
you live the same lifestyle of your, your great uncle who had the thing, yeah, it'll take you right there.
Yeah.
Surefire thing. Cool.
Yeah.
But there are a million other ways to avoid that shit.
Yeah, a million other ways, and I guess we're not being taught that, and I think that's
Oh,
the
no.
problem. You
No.
know, that's the big problem. Going back on the grocery shopping,
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask you.
Do I grocery shop? No, I hate it. I only use Instacart.
You really?
I hate
I like
it.
grocery shopping actually.
I like it, but not to completely like,
Yeah.
derail you, but people are like, "Oh, I just buy things that I don't need."
Mm-hmm.
It is more cost efficient for me to do Instacart and like here are the
Mm.
things that I need versus going
How
there.
do they do on fruit and stuff like that though? They pick those out.
Um
I
so
always get worried they're gonna give me
I
some
would
moldy
say
ass,
no. I would say it's like
soggy.
80% like pretty stellar. I
Okay.
I generally get my stuff from Sprouts.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like
I
Sprouts.
can't ever say that it's
I'm an
like
Aldi's guy,
there
but
are I know
that works with the
there have been a
bank.
few times where I'm like, this is like complete garbage. Like
Yeah.
I wouldn't have picked it. Like, you want to eat this? The
Mhm.
cool thing about Instacart is like literally you tell them like, this is the quality of this is trash, and they're like, oops, sorry. Like, they can
Yeah.
do better and we'll reimburse you.
Right.
I mean, like literally the other day I went to the grocery store. I needed 3 things. This is like how going to Target. I walked out like spending $100 I didn't need to spend because I
Right.
was like,
Target will get you.
Zum spray. Ooh, I need some of that. Like, oh, that flavor of RX bars, that's my favorite. I can't find that, Yeah, so it's like I don't need.
Yeah. To me and Target, no, we mix, but too well.
Huh.
So, you walk in there, like you said, you'll walk out $200. You'll be like,
Yeah,
yeah, what did I buy?
I bought 2 things.
Nowadays, it's like, oh, I only bought 4 things.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways, grocery store.
Yeah.
You're gonna ask about the grocery
Oh,
store.
yeah. So I want to be able to help people because I
Mhm.
understand money is a huge factor, especially nowadays. I mean, just ridiculous to see in the last 10 years a full grocery cart going from $150 to $250. Like me personally,
Mhm.
insane. How can someone on a budget, like, how are they able to eat healthy? I mean, everyone gravitates towards the processed foods. I mean, you go into any grocery store, look at people's carts,
Yeah.
bags of shit,
Yeah.
frozen shit. Is there a way to eat healthy on a budget?
100%. There are places where it's worth it to spend a little bit more,
Right.
like the quality of your protein. Like I said, like grass-fed beef. Um, what's really cool is that it's so available in this day and age where it like even just a few years ago, 5 years ago, it was kind of like a hot commodity. So it was like, shit, like that's
Yeah.
really expensive. But now it's like you can find it priced pretty well.
Yeah.
So spending the money on quality protein, right? Like wild caught fish versus farm raised. Like I said, grass fed beef versus conventional.
Range
Or-
free or cage free eggs.
Yeah, like if you can get like pasteurized or pastured free range eggs,
Mm.
fucking seller.
Yeah.
We have chickens. It's not egg season right now, but it's like we literally have chickens in our backyard. So when I'm buying eggs, I do pasture
Yeah.
free range eggs, cage free at best, organic if you can. But if we look at like produce, There's a group called the Environmental Working Group. Every year they come out with a list called the Dirty Dozen. That list is the 12 most heavily sprayed pesticide-ridden foods that particular year. It kind of doesn't change. I can't remember the last time it changed in quite a few years, but it's things like strawberries, peppers, apples. Like um, I learned in school, like a conventional apple has upwards of 76 different pesticides on it. So it's like if you're gonna spend a little bit extra, buy an organic apple. Or get a conventional one and just clean it and soak it really well to get some of that residue off. Because pesticides is another really big driver of inflammation and chronic
Yeah.
health issues.
Soaking it. So the running it underwater is not really doing it much.
I would soak it in
I've seen
a
a trend.
solution. Yeah, you can do like I've tried a few of them. The easiest one I've done is baking soda.
Yeah, I've seen that one.
And it's just like a quick little soak
But
and it
I've
gets
heard
the residue
arguments
off.
on that that's actually extracting nutrients out of the fruit.
No, if you're looking at something like an apple, no.
Okay.
I disagree with that.
Because I've seen some of them. I mean, the water in it looks so disgusting
Yeah,
after they
I know.
soak it.
Strawberries just kind of gross me out to like because you've seen some videos where it's like there's things crawling out of it. It's like, oh dear God.
I know, yeah, and I don't
Yeah.
think about that. I literally
So
run mine underwater, and
I mean, and quite honestly, like I only buy organic apples
Mhm.
because it's just like a choice that I made for myself. Doesn't mean I won't eat a conventional apple if like that's my only option.
Yeah.
But when I'm buying, like I buy organic. When it comes to that, I do a quick rinse of things because organic doesn't mean that there's no pesticides. It just means that there's a lot less.
Well, and those labels can get, like we said, a
A little
confused.
misleading.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
little misleading
Yeah.
because even like the cage-free eggs, I've seen some of them say cage-free, and that literally means they get like a 30-minute
Oh
recess
yeah,
out of
that's
their
why
cage.
we want like pastured,
Yeah.
free range eggs. Though I mean, you're gonna pay a pretty penny for them.
Well, that and it just with the whole FDA. I mean, I watched a documentary on tuna where it's like they're supposed to be like dolphin free. Like when they catch them in the nets, they pick up a lot of shit, you
Yeah.
know. So dolphins will get stuck in them, and this is just an example. And there's actually a symbol on there that says basically that no deaths occur.
Yeah.
Or a
Like
certain small amount
Safe
of
Catch is a
yeah.
good brand.
But those
Wild
are
Planet.
but I've seen that those are misleading because who's
Who
going
do you-
and
yeah, how
checking
do you
on
actually
these
know?
these boats, and is this really happening? So many, I mean, we've seen the FDA. I mean, these guys are getting basically paid to pass things.
Yeah.
And so it can just,
That makes sense.
or they're being able to retire from the FDA and they
Yeah.
got a seat on that company that they've been
Mhm.
helping out, making $400,000 a year. So it can just, it's hard. It's very misleading. And it's like, where do you start? But in the end, I tell people, and I've been telling myself too, it's like, I mean, start somewhere. You're not going to be able to have everything perfect. Nothing in life is
No, you're
perfect.
not.
It's just like my doctor, a big thing, going back to testosterone, lower testosterone is microplastics. You're not going to be able to get away from it unless you're rich and you've got the money to be able to eliminate
It's the same thing for
plastic
women.
completely out,
like when it comes to endocrine disruptors. So
Mhm.
whether we're talking about like estrogen, testosterone, and because they all work together,
Yeah.
right? And male, female, we all have the same kind of
Yeah.
endocrine system going in terms of we need different balances.
Mhm.
But the plastics, the BPA's, that's a huge one for all of
Yeah.
us. So when I talked about like, whoa, we didn't even touch on like lifestyle and what are you using in your home and in your body, that's like a really big one where it's like, where do you have control? Stop with the plastic. Like
Yeah.
make an investment in Pyrex. So it's like, okay, where do we spend our money? It's like quality meat, organic produce if you can, but also a workaround to that is like frozen because you can find high quality frozen fruits and vegetables year round.
Just as not as nutrient dense as you would fresh, right?
I think that that's negligible.
Mm.
6 to 1, half does the other. Choose your battles because
Yeah.
if you're going to be nitpicky about a frozen fruit or vegetable versus fresh, but we're debating whether or not you're going to eat Doritos instead,
Yeah.
and I love a fucking Dorito. But if we're talking about that, it's like try something else. Try the brand Siete. Try another more conscious brand of some of your favorite snacks. And then it's, looking at like dry goods, like dried beans. You can buy those in bulk. You can buy, rice in bulk. And then there's the great, rice debate of like what's the best kind of rice to eat? Because I'm a huge fan of rice.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different workarounds in terms of
Mm,
that. If like trying to make it more cost efficient.
for sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Let's take a break real quick and
Yeah.
we'll come back.
So
Yeah, I like it. I mean, I've always been intrigued on people's lives and like how they got to where they were at,
yeah.
you know?
It's
I've always said I always wanted to live 1,000 lives, you know, just because I can just like, I don't know, I meet people and I'm just like, damn, how did you get there? You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, you know, just their story is so
Yeah.
interesting. Like,
How
and even
did
the
you get
most
there?
basic of stories, like I don't need much to be interested in, you know, it's just, I'm just always been kind of curious, you know?
Yeah.
But it's always nice too, you know, like other than just like I've had people on that don't even really like do stuff like what you do. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
what you do is really important, but I've also had guys just on that, like my buddy, he's a physical therapist, which we didn't even talk about, but he's just got a cool life. He builds motorcycle, like works on motorcycles and rides with me. And, you know, we just hit it off, you know, and we always have good stories and conversations. And it's nice to see like the story of just a quote unquote normal person.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they always don't have to have blue check marks in order to be
Exactly.
significant,
Yeah.
you
And I
know?
think we need a little bit more of that.
Oh
Like,
yeah. And I think we're starting to get that
yeah.
though. Like here in Kansas City, I don't see a ton of podcasts that are doing that. Like I see more sports podcasts than anything or business.
Yeah.
I see a lot of that. But what about just, you know, just average, you know, people that can relate to,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, I feel like
Yeah.
we're so much pushing the business, business,
Well,
business.
that and it's like if you look at social media, we're always comparing ourselves and saying, well, like, how do I get to that? How do I get to that? And it's like,
Yeah.
that's the road to like fulfillment. And it's like, what if you just talk to like your neighbor and
Yeah.
like,
And then that's where mortality comes into factor because you're
yeah.
like, what's my purpose?
Yeah.
That's my biggest thing I struggle with. If we were to go back on that topic, just, you know, to cut back real quick, purpose, like I struggle with that because, and maybe it's because I have these guys that I'm watching on, you know, YouTube and Instagram saying, well, if you're fucking 30 something and you're working for somebody, you ain't shit. It's
See, I
like,
think that the idea of success and
mm,
especially financial success,
mm-hmm,
people intertwine that with purpose. And I do not think that they are mutually exclusive.
really elaborate on that.
That's, you know, to say like me as a health coach, as a business owner, as a personal trainer, as I like to say I'm like your spiritual hype girl, right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
always asking you to like look inward.
Yeah.
Because we can talk about nutrition and movement and all the things all day long, but if you're not looking at the bigger picture of life, and the things that are truly nourishing and fueling you, you're never going to be happy. You're never going to be fulfilled. So it's like if I were to look at myself and say, well, you know, I'm not making 6 figures a year doing my business, then I'm not successful and I'm not fulfilling on my purpose. I'm in my purpose every fucking day.
Yeah.
My purpose is to impact others, to empower others, to ins- I don't want to say like I'm here to inspire others, but I know that's a part of the role. And if I can have a positive impact on one person to start flipping that mirror and looking at their own existence to create more fulfillment and to find their purpose, I'm nailing it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm nailing it.
But that's the problem is that everyone thinks that their purpose needs to be some sort of influence.
Yeah.
Like they have to be a health coach or they have to be an influencer or they have to be a business owner or they have like there's a guy on Instagram, I think his thing's called like Hub's Life or something like that, and he's really big on trying to explain to people, you know, why is it so bad to work a 9 to 5 and be okay with that?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what's wrong with that? And I read the comments, and I was stuck in this mindset at one point. Everybody in the comments, and a lot of males, it's like, you know, what a simp or what a stuck in the matrix or what a weak dude. Like, why? Because he's okay with what
Yeah.
his route. Like,
Yeah.
because what he says is that it's not necessarily that his 9 to 5 brings him happiness. He uses his 9 to 5 in order to live his life after work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's using it as a tool to gain financial or a financial incentive to be able to, you know, he likes to watch football and or play video games or, you know, stuff like that
Yeah.
that he enjoys, spend time with his wife and travel. What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
Why do you have to go and grind 70 hours a week and run a business and that's the way to key to happiness is financial freedom. I'm sure there's a lot of millionaires out there that can tell you they fucking hate their lives.
Oh yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, because if you look at the space from that was driving them to get there, they're all driving from a space of fear,
Yeah.
like
And
massive
what did they
fear.
have to lose in order to gain what they have?
That's a really good question,
Talk with
and
their family.
exactly. I mean, there's a lot of that they had to sacrifice, and a lot of it
Hmm.
was they were willing to do that. But you have, so many people that have reached that status. There are more millionaires than there are people with six packs. you
Hmm.
know, that's like a if we were to look at like people who women especially who are like obsessed with this notion of getting a six pack, let's look at how difficult it is. Like people who are genetically inclined and they were born that way to have that physiology,
Hmm.
it's like 2% of the world. There are more millionaires than people with like who are naturally
Yeah.
equipped to have six packs. Anyways, but it's like, a lot of millionaires, they grew up having nothing. And so they're now driving from this space of like, I didn't know when my next meal was coming from. I had to wear like hand me downs for my sister. That was fucking embarrassing. I'm wearing my sister's socks to school, and they're too big. And I'm like this boy, and my friends are picking on me, whatever the case may be. So I'm never going back there. So they reach this like status now, but whether it's conscious or unconscious, they're so terrified of going back there, they can't even enjoy their lives.
Hmm.
And that goes back to, the checkbox. Everyone's checking the boxes because let's face it, no one fucking knows what they're doing on this planet.
Yeah.
I'll be the first to tell you,
It's all trial
I
and error.
don't know what I'm doing. Like, I wake up every day and I'm like, where's my avatar? Who is she? Like, what does she do? How does she do this? Like, where in the Matrix am I? I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
My best friend texted me this morning. She was like, hey, how's your life been this week? And I was like, I don't know. I generally wake up feeling lost every day. And she was like, yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Like, being able to like own that and know that as adults of like, we have no fucking clue what we're doing. So it's
Hmm.
like, let me figure it out.
But I want you to elaborate on this because that's something I do see on your Instagram to where you're very transparent about the things you deal with in life
Mm-hmm.
and they're not always positive.
Mm-hmm.
People could look at that and be like, she does all this stuff and she still deals with stuff. So how
Because
would you,
everyone fucking deals with it and it's
yeah,
inescapable. And I think
right.
I will not be another lie like the Instagram influencers that you see. I'm
Yeah.
not letting you watch my highlight reel. There's
Yeah.
a lot that I don't share because I'm actually a very private person.
Yeah. Something you got to
Very,
keep to
very private
yourself. Yeah.
person. But I think if we cannot own up to the human condition that is suffering and not learn to address it, then we're never going to be free from it. And
Hmm.
that's like my job is that of a health coach. So it's like, yeah, you can look at nutrition, but like I said, it's your mental and emotional health, and that's one of the biggest drivers of disease and disease. So it's
Hmm.
like by just trying to go on there and be super positive and pretend like, life is fucking amazing every day. Like I'm living a lie and I won't do that.
Yeah.
And for the, women that do come to me that I see their distress, I see the pain in their eyes, I'm not going to be another, toxic positive person to be like, "Oh, just practice gratitude. It'll all go
Hmm.
away." It's like, "No, we got some shit. Let's talk about the shit."
Hmm.
We have to create sacred space for ourselves. We have to create containers for ourselves.
Can we speak more about your company? I'd like to know
Yeah.
more. Like what's the name?
It's called the Grace Company.
Okay. Okay. When did you start that?
Really, it's been almost 5 years now.
Okay.
So I moved home from New York
Hmm.
in 2018. I was in school for a full year. Um, and so it was like October, fall, like early winter of 2019 that I actually like started my business.
Hmm.
Um, thank you, the pandemic, which is funny because I had an office space. I saw clients in person when I first started.
Yeah.
Um, and so very quickly had to like pivot everything to online, which I know how to people. And the reason that I got into this space of being a health coach wasn't because I was become obsessed with like health. It was actually because I taught teenage girls for so long. I taught dance.
Oh yeah.
So it was watching these girls who, they became my family, my little sisters, if you will, watching them go down the same unhappy and unhealthy avenues that I was with food and body, and watching the food fears that they were developing, going, oh, fuck. Like, if there is anything that I can do to prevent them from going through what I went through. So,
Yeah,
just
let's try to
being,
stop the cycle,
yeah, like just
continued
being
cycle.
really honest and raw and giving them a space to be vulnerable and talk about what was coming up for them.
Hmm.
Um, that's what made me kind of realize, like, oh, I kind of love this. And if I can help anyone not go down the path that I went down.
Hmm.
And it was when I started, like, actually started my business, and I started taking on like adult clients. And when I first started, it was kind of like trial and error of like, okay, well, who do I want to work with? So I had clients who were, in their early 20s. I had clients who were in their 60s. I had men, I had women. But the one thing I found was, from teaching girls at the age of 13, 15, teenagers, when they like
Hmm. Probably
come
the
in.
most
So
crucial moment
exactly,
of a
it's
female,
you
yeah,
get
and a male. I'll be
the
honest with you.
most
Yeah.
like self-conscious about your body. You start questioning yourself and all
Hmm.
of life, right? So from that age to a 65-year-old woman, I'm like, it's the same fucking story.
Yeah.
It is the same fears, it is the same health, self-hatred, self-doubt. So let me step in here. Let's see what we can address here.
If you could explain what is it that you do, is there a way you could kind of summarize that for us? Like what,
Yeah. Um
and it doesn't have to be short, but like kind of so they can
I
understand.
think people first and foremost are like, "Oh, you're a personal trainer and a health coach. You do nutrition, right?" Yeah, cool. So can you do a meal plan for me? No, and I
Yeah.
refuse to, because I stand on the side that it really would just do someone a disservice. There are a million meal plans out there. There are a million like
Hmm.
nutrition programs, if you will. But following a program actually doesn't teach you anything, and it especially doesn't teach you how to think about food, and how to make choices for yourself, healthy choices on a daily basis. So if you look at like, someone does like a 4 week, 8 week, 12 week meal plan, a lot of people have done those,
Hmm.
especially, little challenge things
Yeah.
at local gyms. What happened when the meal plan, like when you were done with it?
You go back to your normal habits of eating.
There was
Yeah.
no change. There's no change. So it's like we're going to keep enlisting in like
Hmm.
challenges or stay in the loop of dieting culture.
Hmm.
So it's keeping people stuck. It's like, people are like, "Oh, I'm doing everything and I can't lose weight," or "I want to look like I work out, but, nothing's changing," or, looking at like trying to clean up your health, but it's like we keep going back to what we're doing because no one's actually learning about food. So first and foremost, as if when I work with my clients, it's about educating them because you can't unknow things, right? So especially for women, like telling them everything that they need to know and were never taught about their female bodies,
Mm.
so that we can break down a lot of how I said it's the conditioning and the programming around how much a woman needs to eat, what's an actual appropriate amount. Like, let me break it down for you scientifically so you understand your basal metabolic rate, your TDEE, and the impact that food has on your body and your metabolism, right?
Mm.
So you understand this and you don't just run around saying my metabolism's broken without knowing what that means, because it's not broken. It might be down regulated, but it sure
Yeah.
shit ain't broken. So
Or
that you
I
can,
don't have a metabolism
yeah,
like
I
when I
don't
was
have one
younger.
anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm old, my
Yeah.
metabolism slowed down. No, and that's
Yeah.
not necessarily true. There's a lot we can do to impact and change
Hmm.
that. Um, but then, I mean, really, it depends on the client, and the case and what they need. Because I tell people, you're not going through my program, you're taking me through your life. So depending on what kind of protocol is needed, it's like, yes, there are specific things that I need to and want to tend to, in order to do my job.
Hmm.
But it's not a one size fits all, and I don't believe in one size fits all. And it's how you said, you're like, well, different diets don't work for different people. Yes, that is the notion of bio individuality.
Mm.
One man's food is a different man's poison. And I sit on the side that that applies to all of life, that it's not just nutrition, it's exercise, it's where we get our sense of joy, the things that fill us up and light us up. So really leaning into that notion. So uh, a huge part of the program is nutrition, and getting people, whether it's like, okay, you have an actual hormone imbalance, so doing what we can to support the body and the gut and the hormones to heal from that. Or if I have a woman who's in a really like healthy space, it's like, dude, you've done all the things, like you're you're your hormones are balanced, like you are in a space of like, rock and gut health. You eat consistently, you eat enough consistently, you have a healthy relationship with food. You're telling me that you feel like you're, in a season that you're ready for fat loss, because there are seasons that you can go into it, and there are times I call this responsible dieting. Like there's times that you shouldn't be dieting. And
Mm.
it's knowing the difference. So it's like someone comes in, they're like, okay, I'm ready to do the damn thing. It's like, great, let's do this. And I can walk people through fat loss protocols, reverse dieting, how to gain muscle, all of that. And really empowering, like I said, to know how to approach that all in the future.
Hmm. I think that what you do is the way. I mean, there's many different ways that I think we should utilize everything we have. But I mean, I'll say it again. I've said it probably multiple times in the podcast. The mind, body, spirit. I mean,
Hmm.
it's probably the thing that stuck to me most when you spoke about it. When I've seen a lot of your stuff on Instagram, and also I've looked at some stuff on YouTube, and those three things. It's like, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, and spirit even being not necessarily religion, just like going back to the
Hmm.
purpose side of
Yeah,
it.
that's one of my favorite conversations
Yeah.
is
So how would you describe spirit then?
so spirituality, because I don't have like deep rooted
Hmm.
religious ties, but spirituality, I think I was drawn to that pretty early on, not even knowing what it meant, but knowing that I wanted access to more. Like think because I didn't have a religious upbringing, I felt like, okay, I know there's something bigger than me. How do I go find that? And I didn't feel drawn to a particular religion.
Hmm.
Spirituality is just one of the components of holistic health. This is not me. This is like holistic health, like to a T. So it just makes sense that I fit right into the holistic
Hmm.
health realm. Um, One of the best ways I ever heard it described is that uh, religion opens the door to spirituality, and spirituality takes you to something even greater. So it's your access to awe, wonder, joy, peace, like all of those, the most delicious human experiences. That is spirituality. It doesn't have to be
Mm.
found in a box. It can simply be found by going outside and connecting to nature. It can be
Right.
found. This sounds so cheesy, but it's like, pause for a second, get out of your like judgy ass adult mind. Look at a kid.
Yeah.
Look at the fucking freedom and joy of a child.
Hmm.
That will help you connect to your spirituality. Look at
Well,
your
well,
animal that you love so
yeah,
much. Like,
they have an imagination though. I
right?
just when you get older, you just don't have
Because we
that.
forget how to play.
Yeah.
We forget how to play. We're so busy fulfilling our successful
Hmm.
purpose and starting businesses. You forget how to fucking play.
And the sad thing is that then we forget and we take that from our kids.
Hmm.
I'm as guilty of it, like you got to catch yourself and be like, man, let them be a kid,
So you
you
said,
know?
what's the draw to snowboarding? It's playing.
Yeah.
It's that sense of freedom. It's
Or
being
working
out.
out or
Uh,
me doing the hobbies I
oh my
have.
God.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's like
Yeah.
actually, people, it's like, why do you love weightlifting so much? And it's like, there was a point in my life where it was fully aesthetic. And that,
Like a job.
meaning like, no,
Started to feel like a job.
not that it felt like a job. It was used
Oh,
solely as a way to change my body.
right. Okay. Yeah.
And anyone who approaches it from that space in the beginning, like, yeah, that makes sense. There's a draw
Yeah.
to do that, but you're going to learn real quick, sooner or later, that that's going to burn you out really quick, or it's just going to leave you in an anxious, depressed state, because that's not fulfilling for me. Weightlifting became a spiritual practice. It's the
Mm,
time, how you said, like, oh, like my mind just shuts off. That's what it does for me. That for me is like,
yeah.
it's not my, when people are like, oh, it's my therapy. No, it's not. It's not my therapy, but it's a great outlet for me to get out of my head and to drop into my body.
Yeah, because the only problem I had with weightlifting is at some point it became like I couldn't get out of my head anymore. Like I couldn't it started to become so routine that it was just like, okay, like now I'm getting lost in my head again.
Mm,
And so when I actually found a hobby, it was like that I could use that I needed weightlifting in order to be successful in this hobby.
yeah.
It gave me purpose in order to do this. So now it's more of like weightlifting help I can get out of my head, but like this hobby is really what gets me, like dancing for you, for instance.
Yeah.
You're probably not thinking much in
Uh-uh.
dancing. You can probably think a little bit working out, but dancing, I'm sure you're like locked in. you know?
Mhm.
So I kind of use weightlifting, and I've been telling people this, that like it's okay to lift, and some people that's all they need, and that's fine. But I feel like a lot of people with brains like mine, like you need something else
Yeah.
also to, in order, like use this as a tool in order to be more successful in this, you know, and then it'll all help. I mean, the weightlifting is going to help body, your mind. Also, this hobby is going to be helping both as
Yeah.
well. So
Mhm.
you're kind of feeding these things, and your nutrition's feeding you, giving you the full
Yeah.
fuel in order to do the.
It's all
So it's
connected.
all
Yeah.
connected in a cycle. Um, since starting your business, has it been hard trying to get people to understand or get client, like is it popular, this form,
Um,
or have you seen it
yes
start to
and no.
increase?
It's a hard question to answer because things
Hmm.
got really weird during the pandemic. I think everyone kind of lived in a state of fear.
Right.
And even back then when I first started, my business, I was kind of really living in the weight loss space. I didn't want to be in that space, but it's kind of just what I knew how to do. Like I knew working out and
Mm.
I knew macros and I know how to, teach people how to eat healthy. So it's like, okay, this makes sense. But we didn't even talk about this. I went back to school. I'm actually this month finishing up to be a hormone health specialist. So that's how I got into this because I just was like, that's not fulfilling to me,
Hmm.
even though it's what I know and it's what I'm good at. So this is one of those things where it's like, just because you're good at it
Hmm.
doesn't mean that it is fulfilling your purpose and that you like it. And I don't want to do things that I don't enjoy. You're talking about 9 to 5. I've never known a 9 to 5. Like
Hmm.
I got my college degree in dance. Let's get serious. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, so shifting over into the hormone space I've found to be much more fulfilling. So this I'm finding people are going, oh, okay, yeah, I know I need this. And I know that like I'm not getting answers from my doctor, and I know that there's a lot that I can do myself. So it's like a whole different caliber of humans that are coming my way, and I love it. It's not even that I've had to change anything. It's just kind of that universal pull, if you will.
uh, uh,
But I will say that working with the health coach, I think,
mhm.
is terrifying for people because it's like, you're asking me to change. Change is really fucking scary. And
Yeah.
what we know about
Creatures
human,
of habit.
yes,
Yeah.
what we know about human behavior is that we will always go to what is known. Why? We avoid pain, we seek pleasure. Avoid pain, seek
Mhm.
pleasure. We will stay in the known so that we have a predictable future outcome solely because it's comfortable, right? That doesn't mean comfort. It just means that it's comfortable
Mm.
versus challenging ourselves and stepping into the unknown and fearing what's on the other side of it. It's like I can navigate in this space of suffering all fucking day long. I've been doing it for years. I know what tomorrow brings, but
Yeah.
you're asking me to change. That's terrifying.
Yeah.
I don't know what tomorrow brings.
So with you now going to school for, you said
I'll
hormone
be a hormone health specialist.
hormone health specialist. So what is that? What is that? If you could explain, like, what is it that you do?
Okay, so really, I get to decide what I do because in this
Uh-huh.
program, it was the most robust program I've really done in terms of like a specialty. So I'm actually in a space, like I'm in a space of change myself right now. It's
Hmm.
like, where do I want to go with this? What do I want to do? Like, I could look at specific things like estrogen dominance. We talked about PCOS. These are,
Hmm.
female hormone imbalances. I could help women get pregnant if I wanted to. There are so many different nuances. I could help people just simply understand how their cycle works.
Hmm.
But I sit on the side of like, I'm going to be able to help serve those with the things that I've experienced myself. So I mentioned, HPA access dysfunction and adrenal fatigue, the gut
Hmm.
health issues, the burnout, right? So the avenue I'm kind of shifting down is the impact of, stress on hormones. And I haven't had to do anything. Like literally, I just like made this decision and these are the people who are coming to me.
Yeah.
Like these women who are just so fucking burnt out. They're all really high achieving, super driven. Um, they know how to work out. They know how to quote unquote eat healthy, but oftentimes their idea of health is actually, what has made them sick. So
Well, my doctor also explained to me, my hormone therapy doctor, he said that women are very overlooked when it comes to understanding their hormones. Like they
Yeah.
say the word, but they don't know that they should go and get their blood work done, see where
Well,
they're.
and here's the thing is, for us women, this is why
Mhm,
it's really important for me to advocate women to, you know
mhm.
the right things to say even when they go to the doctor, because you go and get a basic blood panel, more often than not, you're going to get that blood work back and your doctors go, everything's fine.
But that's where I think they should go other routes, like maybe go to a hormone therapy clinic and.
Even if it's like, okay, well, we'll run a thyroid panel, right?
Uh,
Because thyroid issues are really prevalent in this day and age. So it's
mhm,
like, okay, we'll run a basic panel.
mhm,
You have to advocate to look deeper, because a basic panel really isn't going to show you much, and it's a snapshot in
mhm,
time. It's not telling you the full picture, and it's not even telling you the it's not even looking at the correct hormones, the right actual things that will tell you if
mhm.
there is an imbalance. So
Gotcha.
my one thing is, I'm always going to go back to, are you pulling your weight? Are you doing your part? Because you can go get your hormones checked out and look at the hormone replacement thing. And they'll,
Mhm.
they'll be like, oh, your progesterone's low. Like, oh, maybe your estrogen's a little too high. We're going to give you a shot of this. Take this pill, da 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 da. And I think what comes to mind is like, um, like they're doing this at like cosmetic places, if you will. But it's like, are we going to take a look at your diet? Are we going to take a look at your lifestyle? Because how long are you going to take injections and pills? When are you going to
What you
actually
like cosmetic surgery?
um like med spas?
Mhm.
Like the same place a woman could go get Botox is the same place that she could get her
That's
hormones.
really big right now. I hear that a lot with women talking about, "Oh, my face is getting older. I want to go get Botox." Or I'm like, why is that so popular right now? Like, I don't understand
See,
that.
I think a lot of it's social media.
I know, but can they naturally like help with that, or is it
um
just something you should just embrace instead of
I think we
injecting?
to a degree have to embrace like
Uh,
our inevitable aging. But this is a really again, I piss people off with my answers, but diet and lifestyle greatly impact the rate at which you age.
yeah.
Um, I'm not saying we all know smoking's bad for us, but like alcohol ages the fuck out of
Oh
you.
yeah.
And I love a cocktail. I'm like, give me a dirty martini, but it's like the reality. It's like, know what you're doing. And mind you, I have a
Moderation. Yeah.
much different relationship with alcohol now than I did 20
Yeah.
years ago. Um,
Also saying because I look at you and you don't have, you know, any type of.
that's Botox.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
Oh, okay,
it
okay.
is 100%. But I'm like, you
So,
reach.
so you're saying it's not a bad, because I don't know anything about it. I don't know if it's bad or
I
good
where
or.
I see a, I don't think it's a problem. I just think it's questionable is when you see girls in their 20s doing it, because it's like,
Okay,
number one, it's really expensive, and don't let any woman tell you that it's not. It is
gotcha.
so expensive. And when they tell you it's preventative, it's not preventing anything, but
Mm,
it's like once you start, you kind of can't stop, because the minute you stop, your face goes back to the way it was.
gotcha,
Um, so diet and lifestyle, and I mean like overall skin. Your face is going to
gotcha.
age. It is going to age, but outside of that, like even before I've done this for 2 years now. I'm 39 years old. Like I didn't
Mm.
start when I was in my 20s. Like things like gua sha. And before this, like I gua sha'd my face. I still do every single day.
Oh, the makeup and stuff can be
No,
like.
no, gua sha is, we're gonna look into like Eastern medicine now.
Uh,
So in American terms, I think it's known as like Braxton technique. Like if you ever go to a physical therapist or a chiropractor, anyone in the body space, that they do like scraping. And they have
mm.
that little metal tool. Have you ever seen that? They
I've
do it on
seen
like,
them do the thing with the. I think I've seen you do it sometimes. Like,
so it's
is it
like,
called scraping?
that's what we call it in America,
Because I've
scraping.
seen that.
They'll do it like on tendons and ligaments to like
Yeah, yeah,
help.
yeah,
It promotes blood
yeah.
flow and
Mm-hmm.
healing, right? So that's Braxton technique.
Okay.
Really, what it is gua sha. It's rooted in Chinese medicine. So we can do
Uh,
cosmetic gua sha, and usually do it with like a jade or a rose quartz stone, and it's a way to move
uh,
lymph. We can talk about the whole lymphatic system in the body. It moves lymph, and it just like tightens and pulls everything up. So I do that
mm,
every day. It's like a great natural way to like lift and brighten and tighten your face. and naturally produce that collagen. But even before this, like I had a friend who he was an acupuncturist, and I used to have, because I tell you I'm like really transparent. I used to have like this really deep line on my forehead. My mom has it too. God love her. She's beautiful. I love her. But as I like, I'm looking at my friends, I'm like, I hate this, and y'all don't have a line like this. I'm kind of getting self conscious. And one of my best friends, she was like, honey, we can take care of that. And I'm like, how? And so she's the one who introduced me to Botox 2 years ago. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was really self-conscious about it. But my friend, as an acupuncturist, was like, let's try cosmetic acupuncture. And so he would do that on my forehead. I mean, like 100 needles. And
I've seen that before.
yeah. But he was like, I'm gonna be honest, it's gonna take like at least 10 sessions to see like an even a micro change. So.
And I don't have any problems with people who do resort to Botox. My thing is that it's the first thing they resort to without trying other things. Like I've been trying to get people on the jaw sizer stuff. Like
I have no idea what that is.
You put a rubber ball in your mouth and you kind of bite down on it. I don't know if you've ever seen that before, but basically how Dr. Huberman explains it is that you have muscles all on your face. And the reason why they start to droop is because you're not working those muscles out. So when you work,
we're all running around with resting bitch face.
When you work those muscles, it starts to tighten, just like your body. I mean, it starts to tighten and uplift.
I've seen, it's funny that you said that. You know how you get like Instagram ads? I've been
it's been pretty popular.
Facial yoga.
No, I haven't seen that.
I'm not taking the time to like really
I just
look
make
at
a bunch of crazy faces.
Being like, I do facial yoga every single day. Look how my jawline is completely snatched. And it's like, oh dear God.
I mean, I know the jaw sizer probably looks like one of those infomercial type deals, but I've been using it, and I mean, I've noticed, with
your
the whole
snatched.
Yeah, like trying to get. I mean, I've only done it for maybe 4 months now, and I don't do it as much as I should, but trying to get that jawline that you want, trying to get rid of the double chin, all that stuff, and even, I mean, up here, trying to work your muscles in order to keep that smoother face that we all, kind of want, you know. But it just kind of clicked to me because I never thought about it. I'm like, I'm over here trying to work my body and lift my chest up and get, bigger arms and stuff.
Face.
Yeah, and
I like that.
It would be the same thing with your face.
You just influenced me. I'm gonna get one.
Hey, they're actually not that expensive either. I think it's like $30, and you get like different sizes. Like, so it'll be like just basically harder material,
Interesting.
But yeah, look up Dr. Huberman. He talks about that a lot, but I enjoy a lot of his stuff. But going back on the hormone stuff, the hormone imbalance with women, do you feel like it's talked about enough? I mean, I don't know. I'm not in groups of women. I don't know what they talk about. I feel like more of cosmetic surgery is talked about more now. Like, it's
becoming more and more popular. It's hard for me to answer that honestly because I'm like in the world. So
right.
It's like for me, it's an everyday topic of conversation. But I think it's gotten more and more mainstream. But right now I feel like it's just turning into a conversation of like, my hormones might be imbalanced. Let me go see what pills or injections I need to do to fix them again.
Or gastric bypass surgery. I know that's a big one.
Yeah.
Which I've heard is, I mean, if it works for you, that's fine. But there's some repercussions to that, to doing that procedure.
Yeah.
So, but that's the quick fix.
Yeah.
When.
Well, now it's Ozempic or Mounjaro.
What is that?
The weight loss shot.
Oh, okay. I've never seen that one.
How? I'm like, how have you not seen this?
Maybe I'm just.
I mean,
are guys doing that?
Yeah, it's a diabetes drug, but it was approved for weight loss. And
really?
It used to be that you could only get a prescription for it from a doctor, but like I was talking about, like med spas is like, cosmetic, like injections. Now you can just go to like any licensed person like that who does injections, and you can get the weight loss shot. So girls who don't even need this
are doing
it. Men who don't need it are doing it.
What are the side effects of that? Is there a lot of...
So it's not old enough to know the true long-term side effects, but what research has come out is that we have to understand weight loss 101. When you simply reduce your calorie intake, you will put your body in a deficit to lose weight, but you do not get to dictate where that weight loss is coming from. So, yes, it may come from fat. Without a shadow of a doubt, it is also going to come from muscle. And what
Mm,
we know about muscle is that the more muscle mass we have, the higher metabolic rate we also have. Your metabolic rate is the number of calories that your body burns at
mm,
rest. Um, so again, you're taking a shot that its job is to decrease your appetite, literally make you kind of so you have kind of a food aversion. It's like I hear symptoms like headache, like extreme nausea, and it's like I basically you feel so shitty that if you eat you're going to feel even worse. So it's like that's worth it. That's what you were talking about, like, the millionaires of like what do you have to sacrifice. I'm like, this is how you want to go through your life feeling like this just to like get skinny. So when we're looking at the long-term, side effects so far, it's showing that people's metabolic rate is without a doubt decreasing. You cannot be on this shot long term. So once you get off of it, you basically have no muscle mass.
mm.
You're going to gain it all back plus some. Like you're literally putting your body in a position to not only gain more weight but make it more difficult to lose weight. And this is why like yo-yo dieting is such a problem. That plus the other thing is like the like initial trial studies that they've done are showing that it can cause thyroid cancer. And it's
Really?
like, again, like this is worth it.
The thyroid's a big thing
Mhm.
right now. People are on
It's so
medication.
sensitive, so
Is that
sensitive.
something that can be cured naturally?
I think there are a lot of, depending on what you have, because there are a lot of different things that you can have in terms of thyroid. There's a lot you can do to support. A lot of women are diagnosed with hypothyroidism, meaning their thyroid is operating low. And if we look at the things that are going to impact that, like diet, whether it's too much exercise or not enough,
Mhm.
like we were talking about, like household products, like your endocrine system, especially your thyroid, is very sensitive to the plastics, to
Mhm.
toxic chemicals, even EMFs, electric magnetic field exposure, blue light, like all of these things that kind of seem normal in our everyday life, they do
Yeah.
affect the thyroid.
What do you mean EMS, like sleeping next to your
Yeah.
phone and stuff
hmm
like that?
Computers, wireless,
Hmm.
all
Yeah,
of that.
I had a guy tell me he puts his phone underneath his pillow
So
so he can
bad.
hear it when
Nope.
it
So
goes
bad.
off. I was like,
So bad.
bro.
So bad. Like they tell you the best thing to do is to like not even have it in the same room and
Yeah.
to unplug it. I mean, I can understand how that might be difficult for some people. And not everyone's like into the idea of having an old school alarm clock. But if we were gonna say
I
like
still got mine.
what's the best thing that you can do, it's to not
Yeah.
have your cell phone in like near your head, especially
I
in
know
bed.
I'm wondering here in the next 30 years all the studies that'll
They
come out.
say
Yeah.
like,
'Cause how long have cell phones been
put
out?
your
What,
shit on,
40 years?
airplane mode, like disconnect your Wi-Fi. Like you can
Hmm.
go to a lot of extremes with it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, because Wi-Fi is a big thing.
yeah,
Because
really
we
big
don't
one.
really know what the effects is
Yeah.
on that. Just signals being
hmm Yeah.
constantly, we can't see it,
Yeah.
you know?
But if we look at like how I was talking about minerals, there's so many nuances that women don't know. And I was saying that minerals are the spark plugs for your hormones. It's like your thyroid. Here's a fun fact. The cells inside of your thyroid are the only cells in your body that can uptake iodine, and iodine is specifically needed by your thyroid. So, you know, it's little things like what foods can I eat that have more iodine in them to support my thyroid? These are just like the little things that we sure as shit were not taught.
I was just wondering because I just hear that so much. Oh, I have a thyroid problem. Oh, I can't, I have so much weight on me because I have a thyroid problem.
Well, and then, you go to the doctor and they tell you, "Oh, you have hypothyroidism, take this pill." And they
Yeah,
don't ever mention lifestyle.
I
That's
know
the
they do that to
problem.
my brother. Like, and I've tried to explain to him, you know, there's other ways, man. Like we can fix this. Let's get healthy. Let's eat healthier. Let's work out. But I feel like Dave got him, and it's not a knock to him. He just, I mean, as an individual, he has the access to the information because I'm telling him, you know.
Change is
But yeah, change is hard, and I
hard.
understand. For a long time, I was stuck in it. But he also has the medical field telling him just take this pill, and what you're still
Mm-hmm.
looking the same, or you could. it could get worse, and that's why I've wondered about the thyroid thing so much, because I know it's so common right
Hmm.
now. And why is it so common?
Because of our
Because
lifestyle, because of our diet.
I know, and that's the crazy part. And to be able to detach from that and change that, like you said, just being creatures of habit, it's hard to break that. It really needs to be ingrained in us young,
Hmm.
But in order to do that, I mean, parents got to start making these
Well, and
changes,
parents have
and
to start making it, and I think a lot of it's just like
stop relying on
educate.
schools in order to
Yeah,
teach that,
because they sure as shit ain't. But a lot of
Mm,
it's education because, if you look at, especially like kind of our age group, they just don't know because they were never taught. So now we're expecting adults to now teach children. Well, they don't know. It's the same thing with our
mm,
parents. They didn't teach us because they didn't know.
yeah.
So I'm not the norm.
Hmm.
I am not the norm. What I know, the way I choose to live my life, like I'm not normal. I get that. Even my friends don't live the same lifestyle as me. And a lot of them, even though they have a wealth of knowledge in front of me, it's like you have to have the desire to want to learn it.
Yeah. What was your desire?
It started with, like I said, a lot of it was aesthetically driven at first. But
For everybody, I feel like, yeah,
yeah,
that's the first thing.
when I got in really into working out and I got into
Is
like
it a bad thing? I don't think
macros,
it's a bad
it
thing.
isn't a bad thing until it made me sick.
Mm.
Um, it's
Over
I
dieting, over working out.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I like, again, transparency. It's like the degree to which I was doing all this and the amount of stress that I was under.
Mhm.
I didn't have a period for 4 years. That's not
Wow.
normal. Like I was 30 years old without a menstrual cycle. That's not normal.
Really?
Not to mention the like debilitating like anxiety, brain fog. Like at
Mm.
one point I would like look in the mirror and I looked like I was physically pregnant because I was so bloated. And I'm like,
Mm.
this is not normal. I have to figure out how to fix this. So I got really into that idea of like healing the body through food. And I think what like really tapped it off was that I knew shit wasn't right. And I was like, okay. And this is before I know what I know now. It's like, this is when keto really blew up. I was like, that's it. I'm going to do keto. Like, this is going to balance my
I remember that
hormones. Yeah,
era.
this is going to balance my hormones. This is
Mm.
going to be the answer. And I just was so unwell. So unwell. I was
Mm.
so sick. So just like it started with me wanting to learn. And like you say, like, I just like to soak up things and do my own
Yeah.
research. That was me. And then I kind of came across this notion of like health coaching, not even knowing that it's what I wanted to do, but just like seeing there was people who did that. And I found, the school that I went to. Um, but I also knew I wanted to be a personal trainer. You didn't ask for this information, but I'm going to tell you.
Hey, go ahead.
So
I'm
at
here
the
to listen.
time, yeah, like at the time, I was like, okay, logistically, timeline wise, like it's going to take me X amount of time to go through a full, program of school versus like my personal training cert. I can do that relatively quick. So I was like, let me bang that one out. Um, and I, was doing that my thing in New York, and then I waited to move home to start my nutrition program. So,
Mm. I think also people need to look at more of making investments instead of other things in life that are materialistic, and start making more an investment in their body, in their mind. Because when I'll watch people go buy $1,000 phone, and this is speaking from a guy who battles with this as well, buying shit that, do I really need that? And then literally neglecting the most important thing is the meat vessel that's getting me through
mm-hmm.
life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when people see like personal trainers or like, what you do with the holistic health, it's like, do I want to go spend the couple hundred or whatever it costs to do
Mm-hmm.
that? It's like, you got to learn to make those
Yeah,
changes. Like
because people look at what I do and they go, "That's really expensive," and it's like, but you have no qualms about going out to a $400 dinner or spending X amount of money on your shoes
$100
or,
jeans, or
yeah.
something
It's
that,
like I can't afford a personal trainer. It's like, oh, but you can afford like going out for drinks
yeah.
every
Is
weekend.
it expensive? Like, how is it expensive when it's literally your life?
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
But it's, I mean, think of the way the human mind works and the way like the chemicals work and what we avoid pain, we seek pleasure. So it's like, I'm going to go spend the $1,000 on the phone because that is giving me access to my daily dopamine hits.
Hmm.
That makes all the sense in the world.
yeah.
That's, that's my hit. I need my hit. Same thing with the shoes. It's like,
That
I could
quick,
go a little bit
yeah.
far left with this. It's like, okay, we get the like quick hit from buying it, but then also think of when you wear the shoes out and the people comment on the shoes, and you got
Mm,
the dopest shoes, you know, that just came out, and the attention that you're going to get from that. We look at the hierarchy of needs, like number 2 outside of like your basic survival needs, it's like safety and
mm,
belonging.
yeah.
So it's like that sense of belonging. Like, I look fucking dope, my people accept me.
I seen a picture, and it was of a person that was obese and a person that was fit, and they both said pain underneath it.
Hmm.
I mean, literally, which one do you want? I mean, because they're both going to have
That's
some sort of
And that's
sacrifice.
what I say, is that there's suffering on
Yeah.
both sides. And there's that cheesy quote of like, choose your hard, but it's so true. And it goes back to, I say,
Mm,
like, we will always pick our familiar suffering over our unfamiliar freedom.
mm,
And it's choose your heaven and your hell. Like, once you define your hell and you like know what heaven is
mm.
and you start making your way towards that, it's a choice. Everything's a fucking choice.
Yeah.
Everything is a choice. It's just know what you're choosing.
I think my thing I've had to learn is fall in love with the process, not the end result.
Mm.
You know, I think, or the goal. I think everyone wants to get to the goal so quick.
Mm-hmm.
Fall in love with the process to that
Yeah.
goal, you know, because I honestly feel like I'm never going to get to that kind of utopia goal that I have in my mind. But as long as because I feel like if I get there, then I'm just going to increase it and
Yeah.
increase it and increase. Grass is greener on the other
Yeah.
side. When I need to learn to water
Yeah.
my own grass, you know, and so fall in love more with the process, and that's kind of what I've been incorporating more. Is like, instead of going, I gotta work out, which I have those days, but just going, hey, you know, this is what's leading me to
Yeah.
where I want to be. So let's go make the most of it. Even if I just got to go through the motions, you know, it's
Uh-huh.
maybe not the greatest workout, but
Yeah.
just go through the
I can
motions.
sit here and tell you how much I love
Mhm.
working out, but probably every other day I'm like, I don't want to fucking do it.
Yeah.
I still show up, but
Yep.
I just, it's that initial thing of I don't want to do it. Yesterday I didn't want to do it. Ended up having a phenomenal
Mm.
workout. Interesting about how you said like big person, little person. There's a picture that it just like is burned in my brain. And I feel like this encompasses like the female existence, is that it's a cartoon woman with a bigger body, like the reflection in the body is bigger, okay? And then her actual self is super like small.
You know how many girls that
But
are skinny
it's
that
not
say
even
they're
the
fat?
body dysmorphia thing.
Mm.
It's cuz it's like a picture in a picture. It's a big body and she loses the weight. It takes you through like the whole thing.
Mm.
And once she's lost the weight,
She still sees
it
that.
says that wasn't it. They think that that's the end goal, that they just want the weight loss, but like, this is what I say, like, you have to turn inward, is that simply seeing a number on the scale ain't going to do it for you.
Right.
And I have lived that. Like, I have been that person that lived and died to have a six pack. Remember I said the 2%? I fucking heard that stat and I said, guess what, I'm gonna get one.
Mm.
And I got one.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I ran around with a six pack for so long, and guess who saw it? Not a single fucking person.
Yeah.
I wore baggy shirts because I was so miserable, so self-conscious. Like, no,
Yeah.
that wasn't it for me. That
I know.
wasn't it.
How do you combat that? Because I mean, how many people do you think in gyms have some sort of body dysmorphia? I mean, I would
Oh,
say
every
probably a
single one of
large
them.
percent.
Every single one of them.
They're not big enough. They're not
Yeah.
skinny enough. Their waist isn't. You
So
know.
what's so interesting is like, I was in a gym setting for so long, and then I got really into CrossFit, and I
Mm-hmm.
loved it because I'm like, oh my God, there's no mirrors. Like, this is actually like, this is about getting really fucking good at something.
Mm.
Like, this is about getting super strong, learning a skill, improving upon the skill. Like, there is technique. Like, and it wasn't like, I wasn't into like the WODs. I wasn't like, how fast can we go? Like, oh my God, I won. Like, that
Mm.
shit. No, I'm old and tired and not competitive in that regard. But I loved learning how to do powerlifting and like truly like Olympic lifting and improving upon a skill and doing the drills that it involved to like start lifting heavier. Um, and then I remember going back into a gym setting and going, oh my God, like, oh, this is a mind fuck. And just like
Mm.
watching everyone like making out with themselves in the mirror, and like, it just was like dripping in like
Mm-hmm.
insecurity. I was like, oh, this is weird.
No, I agree. You know what's funny too is that one thing I've been seeing, and it's not funny, it's actually sad, is that I want to kind of get your take on it too, like the clothing.
Mhm.
Like, I feel like I heard a guy say one time, and this, I never thought about this. Everyone's always trying to look for clothing that makes them look better, when really, if you were to focus more on your body and working out and taking care of yourself, you could probably make any clothes look good if you have the body for it, you know? But I feel like nowadays we are trying to, like, they're putting in our face, like, if you're a big person, this will look good on you. And that, like all this
Yeah.
stuff, when, so you're basically telling them they're okay. They're a ticking time bomb. Nobody wants to say that. Everyone wants to
Yeah.
talk about fat shaming and all that stuff. And you're a ticking time bomb, probably for diabetes or any other type of heart, problem, and a list of problems. But we're going to sell you something to make you feel comfortable. It's like, well, no, that's the problem, is that we're being too comfortable. We need to get out of
Mhm.
that and see, like, no, let me work on my body. And especially with women, and men too, but women want to look good in clothing, and they're being sold something that's not leading them down the right path.
Mhm.
I mean, how do you feel about that? I mean, I'm sure you see that a lot.
Um, I don't like. Do you see this like ads for it and stuff?
Yeah, just like for bigger people necessarily, like they're being sold
I don't
something to
know,
make
cause
them
I,
feel
so
better, when really it
I
should
think
be.
I think it's hard for me to not like answer that from the anti-diet culture space.
Hmm.
Because I could sit here and say, yeah, I do agree. It's like if you work out, it's like clothes become more comfortable,
Yeah.
right? But in the same breath for women, because it's a little bit different in a woman's existence,
Mm.
where we will hold on to things thinking I just have to get back to that weight. I just have to get back to that weight, get back to that weight.
The
So it's
genes
like
from the
it's
your 20s.
yeah, it's like
Yeah.
complete mind fuckery, and it's
Mhm.
like, hey, just go buy jeans that fit.
Oh, okay.
Go buy jeans that fit. Like you're literally making your life fucking miserable thinking that you
Mm.
have to fit into this outdated pair of jeans, and it's like go buy jeans that fit so you can feel good and you can feel confident. So it's hard to answer that because it's like I think as a woman there's so much pressure. And then I sit here and go, you're talking to like the least fashionable person. So like I'm like just not into clothes. Like not
Well, but where's the pressure coming from? I feel like it's from one another, like female to female.
oh
Like, what
to
pressure from male? I
yeah,
mean, I don't see males going, "Damn, she's got that shirt on. I don't like that shit." Like, that's I don't. Maybe there is. I don't know.
I
Maybe it's just
think
me.
it's I mean it's female to female, but it's the idea that it was imposed on us of how we have to present ourselves to the opposite sex
Oh,
and
okay.
how we have to look.
Mm,
So guys can be like, "Oh, we don't give a fuck," and it's like, "Yeah, you do. Consciously or unconsciously, you give a lot of fucks, and we
really?
know the shit that you're into, and how do we fill that?
Yeah.
Because the things that you're into were not that, and that's a lot of fucking pressure.
Hmm.
How do we live up to your fantasy?"
Yeah. But I guess it would probably be better not to want to do that. I mean, what
Well,
break
yeah.
that. I
I
mean,
mean, this is
I guess that's difficult. Easier
I'm
said than
gonna
done,
I'm
but
gonna admit that I've not seen the movie Barbie, but my friend actually sent me a clip the other day and it was talking about like what it is to be a woman, where it's like, in essence,
yeah,
it's like you need to be skinny but not too skinny. You need to like be strong but not too strong or you're a bitch.
yeah.
Like all the things. It's like there's double standard with it all. So you look at like a woman, you wonder why we're all so fucking sick.
I mean, I guess it's just hard for me to comprehend, just because I'm not a woman, so I don't understand.
Hmm.
Really, I just from the outside always just see more pressure from what it looks like, and I understand there's probably pressure from males too, but from one another. You know what I mean? It
Hmm.
just always seems like it's a competition. That,
I think as we've gotten, I mean, I'm a little bit older now,
mm.
a little bit older. So I think like
But in your 20s, I mean, I'm
in the
probably
20s,
seen it.
yeah.
Yeah.
What was so interesting is every time I would come home from New York, I felt more pressured about my appearance and the clothes that I would wear here in Kansas City
Mhm.
than I ever did in New York. Because New York, it was like nobody gives a fuck, anything goes. You want to roll up in the bar, up, into the bar in sweatpants. Not that that's like what I was doing, but like no one would even bat an eye at you.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely was, more pressure in our 20s to do that, but every woman will tell you something changes in your 30s and
Yeah.
you start giving a whole lot less fucks. But the conversation my peer group we're having now, and I don't mean younger 30s. I mean those of us who are like closer to age 40, it's going, "Oh my God, why do I have this like new felt sense of insecurity that I thought I grew out of?" And really the common denominator, it always goes back to social media. It's like what we're exposed to day in and day out. And it's up to us to curate our feed, right? But how do you avoid that
Well,
comparison?
that and how do you make it a trend? This healthy lifestyle. You know,
Yeah.
how do we make that? I mean, not necessarily just health wise by just fitness. Overall, everything you spoke about today, how do we make that a trend in women
I
and
mean,
in men?
I think
With all
in
this
mind I'm
being
like,
thrown
well,
in our
to some
face.
degree it is, but it's like it's not.
Yeah.
It's not. It is, but it's not. And a lot of I'll be honest, a lot of people hear what I have to say and they're like, shut the fuck up. Like this bitch is so woo woo, like,
Mm-hmm.
who gives a fuck? Like,
Yeah.
I know my audience on both sides.
Yeah.
I know who I am. I know who I'm speaking to and I know who I'm not. I know the people that think I'm full of shit, but I've spent a lot of time getting to know myself, whereas I don't think a lot of people have. And I literally, it's funny that we're going down this rabbit hole. This morning I was like literally thinking, okay, who is the one person that we have the longest relationship with in our lives? It's ourselves,
Yep.
right? Yet we look outside of ourselves every single day for the world to tell us who we are, what we want, what we don't want, who we like, what we like, how we like it, right? When do we ever pause to go inward and ask those questions? But every day we battle ourselves and fight ourselves, and there is so much self-loathing and self-hatred and comparison of to that which is outside of us. So it's the journey to self. So it's like we can look at holistic health all day long, we can look at nutrition, all that, but for me, it's so much bigger than that. Like I said, that you can't just look at the food on your plate. You have to look at the bigger picture of life. And for
Yep.
me, it's the journey of self. And I've been on that shit since I was 30 years old. Probably the same day that Androck Pierre said to me, "I want you to stop drinking," and I
Yep.
said, "Go fuck yourself." I committed to a journey of getting to know myself.
Yeah. And I wish people would understand more as that journey never ends.
Oh, it doesn't.
Yeah.
And I will be honest, when I was about like 35, there was a place of like, aha, I've done it. I've arrived.
Mm-hmm.
And then
And then
going,
life throws a curveball at
oh,
you.
fuck. And having to go through the grieving process, because there's a lot of grief in life that we do not process. We don't
Mhm.
even acknowledge it as grief. And
Past traumas. Yeah.
we're not taught, especially in our culture, how to process grief. So
Mhm.
going through the grieving process of you lose like versions of yourself and you evolve, and realizing and coming to terms with the fact that, oh, the journey to self actually is that of a
Well,
lifetime.
I think that's a big issue, living in the past.
Hmm.
What would you recommend on overcoming that?
That feels like a really loaded question.
Take your
I
time.
mean, do you mean, are we looking at just like on a daily basis living in the past, or are we talking about like trauma? We talk about big T trauma, we talk about little
I
T
mean, I guess,
trauma.
yeah, I would probably get different answers, but I just feel like, and I could just speak for myself, I've always had an issue of forgetting the past. Stop living in the past, live in the present. And also I have an issue of living in the future too much.
Uh-huh.
But I think a lot of people have that issue.
Yeah, there's
So
it's
how does one deal like when those thoughts come into your head, and because it can affect your entire day, your
uh-huh.
mood, I mean,
Uh-huh.
everything. And
Yeah.
sometimes maybe you don't see it, or you've been doing it for so long you don't even notice
Yeah. There's
how to manage that.
a a quote, and I'm not even going to pretend to remember who said it, but some very well-known spiritual person, and I should know their name. And it talks about how if you're depressed, you're living in the past. You're focused on what you've lost or what you no longer have, right? That's why people get depressed. If you are anxious, because you're living in the future and you're focused on things outside of your control and things that haven't even happened yet. So, how can we bring ourselves into the present moment? And this is kind of like mindfulness 101, which we aren't taught. Again, it's like, what are some of the most valuable things that we can teach children? How to be in the present moment, how to sit with themselves, how to be with their own thoughts
Mm-hmm.
instead of escaping them and chasing those dopamine hits, avoiding the pain, seeking the pleasure, right? Um, I'm a really big fan of meditation, and as I've gotten older, um, I've expanded my perception of what meditation has to entail. I used to be like devout seated practice. We can get into like the feminine and masculine and how I think that a seated practice kind of goes against the feminine. And for especially the novice meditator, a seated practice might be like a hard no, a full body fuck this, right?
Mm,
And you're like, I can't do this. So starting with like walk or like while you're washing the dishes, like truly be present in that moment. But in essence, like learning to be in the present moment, especially if you can and do it in like quiet, right? And people get into the whole idea of like, well, I can't make my mind stop, and I don't know what in this realm, but having the understanding and the acceptance of, well, your mind is a thinking machine. It is a problem solving machine. Therefore, it's not going to stop doing its job.
mm,
Your job is to sit there and let the mind do what it's going to do and not react to it. So, the best way I could explain it is like, if you're sitting on the side of the highway or, North Oak Traffic Way and you're watching the cars go down the street,
mm.
you're not going to run out in the middle of the cars and try to stop traffic because you don't like the blue car that drove by.
Yeah.
Your ass is going to get ran over,
Mhm.
right? So it's like, can you just sit on the side of the road and let the cars do what the cars are going to do?
Mm.
Or it's like looking at clouds in the sky. I think that practicing, the ability to just be present and accept what's going on inside of you, first and foremost, I think that's a great first step. But when it comes to like living in the past, there's a lot to be said about, if we are talking, trauma, whether it's big T or little t, because we all have little t trauma. That shit
For
happens
sure.
on a weekly basis, but especially if it's big T trauma, I think working with, a trauma informed, whether it's a therapist or a coach or some kind of specialist, I think that's an opportunity that a lot of people don't capitalize on, and in the importance of it, because we've talked about how, the body does keep the score.
Mhm.
And that's why there is so much disease and disease. But just generally speaking, it's like living the past. It's like, what is the story that you're living in? What is the story?
Yeah.
Because you are so entangled in this story and the pain of this story. So it's like, how can we rewrite the story?
That's very
It's all a
difficult.
fucking story.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the difficult part. And
Mm-hmm.
even meditation, now that you bring it up, I'm glad you brought it up because that's something I've been wanting to incorporate. It's hard to start.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to be by yourself. It's hard to stop all distractions and let me just sit with myself.
Mm-hmm.
Because the whole time, like, my biggest thing is that what I battle with, I'm always trying to find the next
Mm-hmm.
thing, and this hobby, and do this and start this, and then, learn this. And to sit with yourself and just, I mean, I don't even, I haven't looked up much on meditation, so I don't know. But I mean, I guess how I look at it as just basically flushing everything out and just,
And
you
people
know,
think that that's what's going to happen, and
yeah,
that's why they get deterred from it, because they sit down and they go, "I thought everything was supposed to stop. Everything is flooding in," and it's
yeah,
like, yeah, because you ask the mind to stop.
yeah.
It's like a little kid. You tell them to stop doing something,
Mhm.
they're going to do it 10 times more,
So,
or
so
tell.
how would you start to incorporate it then? To
I think you
slowly
start
incorporate it?
like literally start slow. So it's like if you want to start a seated practice, it's setting a timer for 2 minutes. There are actually like great free apps. There's an app
See,
called.
that's my problem. I'm over here trying to do 25 minutes of
Oh, no,
meditation.
no, no,
Yeah,
no, no, no. It's like
kind
start
of
small.
microdose it. Yeah,
Yeah, you do have to microdose
yeah.
it. Start small and build your way up to it. There's a great free app called Insight Timer that has literally, it's called Learn to Meditate in 7 days. And I think that's a great start for beginners if you're like, I can't do this shit on my own. But I think just simply starting a timer and
Mm,
allowing yourself to just sit and be still. And it's like there's so many rules around it. It has to be like seated, and it's like, certain posture, and it's like, dude, there's enough stress in this life. Like, why does it have to start that? Like, you want to lay down, lay down.
yeah,
You want to
you
be
don't have to
chilling on the
sit
couch, like
crisscross
Chris,
applesauce
yeah,
and
like
yeah.
I don't love the rules. And
Mm,
again, I'm like all about learning the rules so you can break them.
mm-hmm.
But we talk about like using the breath as an anchor. And for me, meditation and breath work kind of do go hand in hand.
Yep.
Um, And that's another thing that we're not taught is how to properly breathe.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I've been wanting to read a book called Breathe, written by Hickson Gracie, and he speaks a lot about you know basically breathing. What's it called? Breathing exercises
Uh-huh.
and what you can do. And I've actually tried some. Taking in like big breaths, um, like 10 of them, like doing reps of 10.
Like Wim Hof breathing.
Yeah, yep. And
Yeah.
how it kind
That's
of,
like advanced.
yeah. Well, maybe I
It's like,
wasn't
do
doing
not
that
try that at
exact
home.
one,
You'll
but
pass out.
but yeah, I mean, like there's so many different things that we overlook because I never thought about it. Like you really don't focus on breathing; your body
Nope.
just kind of does it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then like the whole carbon monoxide buildup inside your
Yep.
body and all that stuff.
It's actually one of the biggest drivers of inflammation is because everyone's walking around chest breathing and nobody's doing deep belly
Right.
diaphragmatic breathing. Even like Huberman's done he's come out and done things on like on mouth taping.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Like
Yeah.
mouth taping when you
Sleeping with your
sleep.
mouth closed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard that's a big one. And
That's like
he was actually talking about breath work too, not too long ago on a podcast. And like you said, you got to be careful because some of it can mess you up.
Some of them are like a little advanced, but
Yeah.
I actually, when we're like, okay, well, what are some like, easy first steps that you can do? I'm never going to tell you first step is to start meditating because that's, again, it's like we kind of have to build up our tolerance to that. But breathing, especially for the clients that come to me who are dysregulated, like that is a practice that I legitimately am like, set a reminder on your phone. We're doing this several times a day.
Gotcha.
For 3 minutes, we do the 4-7-8 breath. And that's like my go-to standard. There are different like types of pretty gentle, deep breathing. Like another one is just like the 4-sided breath. And that's like breathing 101. But 4-7-8, what it does to slow your heart rate down is that it has a longer exhale than it does inhale. So if, for my clients, they struggle to fall asleep, that's a great one. Even in the middle of the day. But our breath is so tied to our nervous system that it's any time that we can use our breath to down regulate it, to get out of fight or flight, to get into rest and digest. I love breathing.
And consistency is key. It's not going to happen the first month of you doing this. And I find that to be the biggest problem. And it's the biggest problem in anything is that everybody thinks it's going to happen overnight. Consistency is key. You got to keep doing it. It's not going to stop. You're not going to do this shit for a year, get what you want, and then be able to stop. This is a lifetime goal.
Yeah, you're literally committing to becoming a different person.
And that's why I don't like those 30-day.
I don't like the 30-day challenges either.
It drives me nuts. And also, too, another thing I want to hit on is one thing I had to figure out. Motivation was one thing, but discipline's another.
It's discipline. Motivation's bullshit.
Yeah, and I do like motivational videos. There's sometimes I'll throw one on, it'll get me amped. I don't use that to continue doing that over a long period of time. I've had to learn that you have to be disciplined. Like I said earlier, treat working out like brushing your teeth. You don't think about it, you just do it. You have to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. And wrapping up the conversation now, I kind of want to know too, and this is, going to spider web off, but go back to the holistic side. What are the misconceptions? Because I kind of want to highlight that because I feel like we said earlier, people roll their eyes when they hear what you do, and I think it's crazy to me that, everything you've talked about today, I don't know how it doesn't make sense, but what are some of the misconceptions that you're hearing when people know about what you do?
I think one of the fears, this is really just an assumption because I can't really tell you that people come to me and like
because people think that you have like crystals and stuff like you're about to do some voodoo stuff type.
Listen, I have crystals sitting in my office in a bowl. Do I know what they do? No, I just think they're pretty. No, and there are, because there's so many nuances. So it's like I'm not, while I'm into the spiritual hippie woo-woo shit, that's not the root of what I do or how I work with my clients. That's like let me give a weird example. It's like I can't even give one where it's like, let's say you were like, okay, I want to know everything about football. And you were like, okay, well, let me tell you the beginnings of rugby. It's like, I didn't fucking ask that. Like, tell me how football works.
Yeah.
Right. I understand like how one evolved into the next. So for me, it's like, yes, we can look at holistic health as a whole, but people do get like hyper focused on like this crystal bullshit.
Yeah.
And like, not that, like, that's not it what it is.
Yeah.
That is one thing that some people do. But that's not the driver of holistic health, nor does it have anything to do with what I do.
Yeah.
I will say misconception in terms of what I do as a whole and the lifestyle that I live and the expectations around that. I think people look at what I do and they think that I am probably so isolated and separate from the mainstream that they go, I couldn't do that. There's no way. And little do they know that I have a very full and robust life. That I go out, I socialize, I go out to dinner. I'm with friends and families. We have dinner parties. We do all the things. So there's not an extreme level of sacrifice that has to happen in order to give a fuck about your health. It's the 80-20 rule. It's like, what are you doing 80% of the time?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
What are you doing the other 20%? Because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people, their 80% looks like what their 20% should look.
Yeah. Is there anything you want to talk about? Anything you got going on coming up?
Shit.
I'll have everything tagged too, all your
Yeah.
stuff and the
I mean, not really. I feel like we covered so much.
Yeah.
Like, so much. We went down so many rabbit holes.
Yeah.
So many rabbit holes. I don't have it, like, it's not into fruition yet, but
Mhm.
I want to put together a free challenge for women just to kind of get a taste of all this and get them going with some of, like how you say, like, where should we
Yeah.
start? And it's like, I'll give you, the basics of where to start.
And you're specifically women, right? Or do you accept male clients too?
I have male clients. I've worked
Okay.
with male clients. As a business owner, it's like, oh, you have a market, you have a
For sure.
niche, if you will.
Yeah.
But I've worked with male clients who are, in their 20s up to, my favorite one was like 67, and he was, like,
Mm-hmm.
he was doing the thing. He was doing the thing. So I do work with males. When it comes to, like, kind of the deeper hormone stuff, I'm very honest with people. I don't pretend to know it all.
Mm.
So if someone has an issue that I'm like, that is beyond me,
Yeah.
I have a whole roster of people I can refer out to. And even, in the realm of functional medicine in Kansas City, there are different people that if people are curious and they're like, I hear that that's a world, I want to get into it and, maybe go meet with a functional medicine doctor, but I don't know where to look.
Mm-hmm.
I always have those referrals on hand as well.
I hope that more people go to you. Everything you talked about today was great. I mean, I learned so much today. I hope one thing that people do understand too is that when they do go to you, it also takes individual responsibility to incorporate these
Oh my
things
God, so much.
into their life.
Yeah.
I feel like me and James spoke about this too, because in his line of work, people think that they go to him and he's like, yeah, I can help you, but you also got to help yourself.
Well, and that's the thing that's a huge part of it,
Mhm.
is that people think like, okay, I come to my sessions, and it's like, yeah, but the bulk of your program is your day-to-day life.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah,
like,
I
when
have
we're
you
not
for this
together?
amount of time.
Yeah.
The rest is you,
It is
individual
on
responsibility. You
That's
need
why,
to
like,
do this.
I tell, and people ask me about like what it is to work with me, and it's like, it's not like therapy where it's like we have a session and it's like, peace out, see you in a couple weeks. I'm the guide on the side. Like, I'm there. I make myself available because change is fucking hard.
Yeah.
It is hard. So I make myself available. I'm there for the hard stuff. I'm there for the questions. I'm there for the doubts. Because I'm like, I want people to win. I want people
Yeah.
to feel good. I want people to step on the other side of that transformation that they've never known. The part, the place that they're like, I want it so bad.
Yeah.
I just don't know how to get there.
Hey, it's going to be one day or it's day one.
Yeah,
You know
exactly.
what I mean? So I wish you continued success.
Thank you.
I appreciate you coming on. You're welcome anytime. I'm sure we could probably do another 15 of these podcasts because there's so much to dig into. So, so much that, like you said, that's why I love your line of work, is that you guys aren't looking at a specific thing. It's everything that's related, that's contributing. So I hope more people go to you to learn about that. But thank you for your time.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much.